Welcome to the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast.
What a humdinger of a show!
Jumpy, beep, beep! Booty-O's!
They make sure you ain't booty!
I got the gift of gab and the gift of jab, and I'll put that lazy eye right back to work.
I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a good guy. I'm the guy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. The wrestling podcast to review Monday Night Raw and give all of you people the beautiful news regarding the brand split. Oh, yes, it's happening, people. And myself and my co-host have been tearing our hairs out trying to figure out how we're going to do this on this show. But regardless, I alluded to that. My name is Turbo Tony, the host of this show every single week, and I've missed hosting it with him. This man who was away last week. And he is taking WWE's example, and he is splitting himself into two pieces this week to cover more of his demographics. It's Matt Marsander.
I don't understand how I could do that. Shut up, you!
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I guess like a serious case of like schizophrenic, maybe?
Yeah, well, basically what's going to happen now, Matt, is that you'll split off from Marsander, and we'll have Matt and Marsander going forward.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'd be like Deadpool, where you've got like two different voices at the same time. So I'm going to need you to kind of do that. So,
no.
I could cut you in half like a bad magician's act if you want me to try.
No.
You don't trust me with a rusty saw?
Not so much.
No. Oh, well. How are you doing, Matt? Did you enjoy your week away?
I did enjoy my week away, and I kind of feel really bad because whilst I was away, I didn't even finish watching Raw.
Oh.
Like I am, it's like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to review. I think I can afford to miss a Raw.
Well, the way that things are going forward, Matt, you may not be reviewing Raw that much longer anyway. So
That's very true.
A little bit of teasing into what we're talking about this week. So, yeah, I've got a couple of questions to talk to you about what happened on your time away. Did Charlotte punch you in the face?
No.
She didn't. To me. So, oh well. Did you wipe your ass with a bunny?
Not that I remember.
Oh, that's disappointing. That really is. You're like, what the fuck happened at that show last week? Well, there you are. It's the things that get spoken about.
The things you miss out on.
The things you miss out on. We've got plenty to talk about this week. Jesus Christ. So we're going to do our plugs, do a bit of procrastination and get straight into it. Of course, if you guys would like to interact with us, the main way of doing so is our Facebook page, facebook.com// Let's Talk Wrestling Podcast. You can also tweet us at the Twitter handle, which is
at Talk Wrestle Pod.
I bet you've been waiting a week to do that, Matt. It just hasn't, it's just not. You drop it.
I did it on the pay-per-view review.
Oh yeah. Well, that kind of fucks up what I was saying there. Anyway,
don't you feel like a fool?
I do a bit, yeah, let's be honest. I'm going to tiptoe away from that, but still. Of course, if you want to send us any audio questions or private emails, which we actually got a couple this week, a couple of questions and stuff, so that's awesome. That is Let's Talk Wrestling Podcast at gmail.com. And as I said before, if you just want to send it forward saying that, Tony, I love you, you're the greatest podcaster of all time, you can send that. If it makes you feel better, that's okay. I'll let you do that. Sure, you could say some nice stuff about that as well if you feel like.
I would appreciate it.
What we got on the show this week, of course, we've got the news, which is going to be involving the brand split and Cody Rhodes. What's going on with him? Of course, we've got our fan feedback, a very lengthy fan feedback with some interesting questions, as always, here on this show. We do have Matt's super sexy, difficult, intense, awesome challenge, which is brand split themed. So some trivia for you guys. We have a new segment here on this show. And I am going to reveal it as it happens, so that will keep you a little bit titillated until that happens. And, of course, we've got our Raw review But to be honest, it's going to be one of those Raw reviews that if things start taking a long time, then we're going to have to brush over some stuff because fucking hell do we have a shit ton to talk about this week. So, All right then, Matt, a bit of procrastination before we get into our wrestling talk. So Stacey host last week's show in your stead. There's a lot of nice messages left. She did quite well. Do you feel as if your position is under threat at all, Matt?
No.
No? You're quite confident.
I'm quite confident that
Matt, she does sleep with me, so that kind of is on her side.
Well, shut up.
She's got boobs as well.
I can't offer that.
Well, grow bare tits, and you can carry on being on the show, okay, Matt? All right. I don't demand too much. I just need you to split yourself in two and grow a pair of tits. Okay, so you can do that for me.
Simple things, damn it.
Simple things, yeah. But yeah, honestly, thank you guys for the nice messages. She was really nervous for last week. And it was one of those things that, like, I hadn't even planned. I was going to do the show solo. And I just asked her, oh, do you just fancy, like, being on? Just, like, watching the show and being on? She was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll do it. I was like, what? What the fuck did you just say? You said you were going to do it? And then that's how it came about. So, bit of a ballsy move on her part. Maybe Matt, one time you'll have to get your other half on and do a show when I'm away. No,
No.
no,
No. Mine.
So the big sports that are happening right now, Matt. Champions League final.
Yay, sports!
Yeah. And then you got Game 6 between the OKC and Golden State. Matt?
Sports!
Yeah. For people who knows that I like sports. I'm interested in the NBA match much more than Champions League final, but that's because I'm just much more into basketball nowadays. Matt?
Sports!
One thing you are into. Sports, yeah! Feel the rush, right? Feel the burn. Of course, Matt, it's been a week since it happened. I think that now is the right time to talk a little bit about Game of Thrones.
No.
Would you rather me not hold the door open?
No. Don't. No.
Are you sad? Are you sad about Hodor?
Man, I was devastated.
I was like,
you hold the door, big guy.
Yeah, you do. I think it was the guy out of Rocky just going, throw it in the damn towel. But, yeah, that was pretty heartbreaking.
Devastated.
Cool thing, though, to see all the fucking, the White Walkers, like...
I don't know.
Charging in.
I'm starting to get a bit old on the White Walkers, considering all of a sudden, I quite liked it when they were this big frozen army, and now I'm not too keen when they're, like, wall-crawling zombies.
Yeah, I'm still on it. I still think it's okay.
Oh yeah, like the White. Well, to be fair, like the White King and the Witch King. Well, you know the one I was on about.
Yeah. Although I felt a little bit sad though that like for ages it ended up being like everyone was back into Game of Thrones just because Emilia Clarke, who plays Daenerys Targaryen, decided to go naked. Yeah, it's like not because she got a great performance, it's because she got her baps out again. I'm like, she's a great actress, fucking hell. But,
to be fair, that was another bit that was quite devastating as well.
What do you mean?
When she's doing the whole like, you promised to serve me, now go off, now fuck off and go make yourself better.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
I said to Stacey, like, he missed the opportunity at that point just to spin some yarn and say that the cure is between your legs so he can finally get some from the woman he loves. But Jorah, man, you missed out. But
Rookie.
Listen, if he's not trying hard enough to get out of the friend zone, then he can marshal that place as much as he likes. So that's the end. Anyway, Matt, I think that's enough procrastination unless you want to procrastinate about a couple of things.
I have nothing to procrastinate about. I'm
kind of glad about that because, Matt, we do have a shit ton to talk about this week, and it's time to get into that. So this is the news, the big news, probably the biggest news story over the course of this week. I can't even think of anything that would possibly be bigger than this. The brand split is happening again. WWE made the announcement this week that beginning July 19th, SmackDown will be moving to Tuesday nights. And yes, that is the same night that TNA airs their product. So I'm sure Dixie having a bit of a headache from there. They're going live. So SmackDown's no longer being taped. It's been literally they're moving it to Tuesdays because they would normally tape on a Tuesday anyway. So they're essentially just going to make the taping live and then air it on the Tuesday on USA. Which they could have done all of that, Matt, and it wouldn't have mattered at all. The one thing that does matter is the fact that they are splitting up the rosters. They're going to have a draft. So this is a full-on brand split.
I hope they do a proper draft.
What, like back in 2002?
Oh, yeah, man. I used to love the draft. Do you know the one thing I was quite happy about was like, we finally get bragging rights back.
You say that as if that was like a great show on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
Like they fought for a trophy that meant nothing, though. Let's be honest. But
that's very true.
But yeah, the plan is as you say, is to split the roster up in two. They've got just under 2 months to get everything wrapped up, get everything in a place, get all their ideas set in place before they officially launch it.
Yeah.
Two things immediately came to mind when this came out. Well, three, actually. The first of being, how the fuck are we going to do this on the show? Which we're going to get into a little bit later. In fact, that may end up having to be a separate video because, you know, there may end up being drastic changes to this own podcast because of this announcement. But the other is, I'm worried about the quality of Raw. I think it's more likely that it's going to get worse than it's going to get better, as they struggle to fit 3 hours with an even more limited roster. And the other flip side of that, Matt, is that, well, you could give guys more time. But I don't ever think that's been WWE's problem. It's their use of the time that they have. That's the problem. So that makes me a little bit worried on the Raw side because, yeah, the brand split is happening, but Raw is still 3 hours. That's still a big problem. You know, it's not like, okay, so we're now expecting you to watch 2 hours of SmackDown every week, so we'll bring Raw back down to 2 hours. No, they've got no intention. They make too much money through that third hour at a detriment to the quality of the show, but that's the problem with it here. So it's one of those things that, Matt, I also wondered as well. One of the initial things that came into mind is I wonder how much this decision was put into place regarding their TV deal with USA. And not only their TV deal with USA, but even like Sky Sports and things a little bit more local to us, right? So WWE, they launched this network, which is obviously that. I'm just going to say right now, I don't even have the scoop of how these networks feel, but I can tell you pretty confident they must have been pissed with WWE launching that network, because essentially it's WWE trying to, trying to
keep them out, really.
Yeah, to a certain degree, right? So this may be a way that they can placate them. It's like, yeah, we do have our network and we're making a lot of money through that, and we don't rely so much more on the TV side of it anymore. But now we're giving you 2 live shows every week, and we're going to go big dick on it. We're going to go, okay, this is going to be like must-see television. Yeah. I mean, the rumor is that John Cena is going to be on SmackDown. AJ Styles is going to be on SmackDown. Cesaro. So they're packing it quite a bit on that side. So I honestly think that this is part of this reason is to placate USA. I don't know when their next TV deal is coming up, but this is going to play a big deal into it. There's no denying that. So the other thing with this as well is that we haven't heard any news on championships, any commentary changes. There's no news on that currently yet, just a lot of rumors, right? My thought is that initially that they'll go for just having like the undisputed championship, which will be done on both shows, because it's just a case of the talent staying an extra day and working an extra show and therefore making more money. I did hear an idea though, and I kind of liked it a little bit, although I don't know whether or not I would go for it, Matt. But you know that WWE is really big on the world title design, having the big logo, right? They love it. They're sending it over to everyone, getting celebrities with pictures of the logo, right? They love the new design. So apparently an idea was that I heard, and I thought, well, this will be definitely something that I'm sure WWE would be looking at, is having the idea of, we're going to have a Raw champion and a SmackDown champion. But they wouldn't bring in the big gold belt again and say, okay, we'll just split up the world heavyweight and just go back to what it was before. But they would essentially have the same championship design, but one with a red strap and one with a blue strap.
Or like the line under the W sort of thing.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So that is an interesting idea, whether or not that would be something that they end up going for. I don't think they have any indication that they want to go back to the big gold belt or anything along those lines. That's just my opinion. But, I mean, the one thing about this is obviously about this brand split is that initially, at the very least, Matt, it's causing a lot of conversation, right? It's causing a lot of interest. A lot of people have been talking about, hell, we're talking about here on this show, right? We didn't just call it one of the biggest news stories in the year for nothing. The ramifications, both positive and negative, for this brand split is going to be felt not right at the beginning, because WWE are going to pull their finger out and do everything they can to try and make this work at the start. It's 4, 5, 6 months down the line where the problems are going to start rearing their head. And I do think there's going to be a few of them. Matt, one of the things that we said before is that we don't believe there's enough stars to really sell 2 shows now in today's products.
I think it's the trouble that they're going to have. I mean, they're trying to justify it like, oh, yeah, with Rollins returning and, you know, Cena's back Monday and all things like that. It's like, yeah, we need to do this to make up for all the space. So it's like, so from what we've been saying for a long time, which is like they've oversaturated their roster, it's almost like WWE have finally decided, we have crap.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things, though, that I think that look at the problems that WWE got into recently with injuries, right? I don't think that issue's going away.
No.
Personally. Like, people, you know, guys are still going to get injured. They got really badly damaged with like 1 or 2 injuries that they were scrambling to try and come up with some sort of a WrestleMania to give us. Imagine if that happens on one of these brands where you basically got John Cena and one other guy selling the show and they get injured.
Yeah.
Man, that doesn't make for good reading right there. But I still stand by that there's a few problems here. I think Raw's going to suffer more than SmackDown. I mean, SmackDown is obviously going to get better because they're going to care about SmackDown. The whole thing about SmackDown has been completely like nothing. It just doesn't matter.
Do you know what I say?
Go on.
Give Heyman SmackDown.
Give Heyman SmackDown. I don't even think he wants SmackDown anymore. You want that year where he was booking SmackDown and it was fucking amazing.
I want the SmackDown 6.
Yeah. Good luck, Matt. Good luck.
I don't
think you're getting that. Although, like I said, if they're bringing... Like, the idea of it is that the rumor seems to be that they're going to try and make SmackDown the home of the new era, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you're going to see, like, probably NXT recruits show up on there first, or you're going to see... you know, some of the more indie, you know, the indie talent showing up there. Like, apparently AJ Styles is going to SmackDown.
Yeah, but the New Day is apparently going to SmackDown.
Yeah, well, you need other talent. You can't pack it all just one thing. So I think that SmackDown is going to be basically maybe for the more hardcore based fans. Maybe they're trying to actually appeal to that demographic. I'm not entirely sure of that. But maybe that's something they're going down. And then it's almost, if you look at it in that sort of sense, it kind of reminds you a lot of what they did with SmackDown roughly about 2005. I mean, roughly around the era that you're talking about, Matt.
Yeah.
Where it was, they packed SmackDown with a lot of very good workers and a lot of very young talent, right? And on Raw, you had some of the more established long-term talent like Triple H, for example, right?
Austin.
Rock, yeah.
People like that.
So they would be there because they were the more of the stars. But if you'd ask anyone back then which show you would watch for the better wrestling, SmackDown was the winner of that. Even better storylines back then. So SmackDown's going to obviously getting a big boost from this. It's actually going to mean something now, enough that myself and Matt are going through different scenarios about how we're going to do the show going forward. And we may as well talk about that a little bit here, because I've always said before that the reason we don't watch SmackDown, one, because it doesn't matter, and two, because there's an extra 2 hours on what is already a very packed week of wrestling here on the show. So we've got 3 hours of Raw, NXT if we can catch it, Lucha Underground, then maybe a pay-per-view, right, on the week. Myself and Matt don't have all week to watch wrestling. You know, this is a hobby of ours. So having another 2 hours onto that on like weekly, that starts to really ramping up from that point on. So that's why it's not entirely doable. And Matt, when they brought this out, the first thing I thought of, am I going to have to watch 2 extra hours of wrestling every week? And I immediately felt exhausted just from thinking that, you know? So the idea that we came up with is we review different shows. So Matt would go off, and I think what it looks like, Matt, you'll end up doing SmackDown every single week. And I would do Raw. So the reason why we're thinking this might change the sharp a little bit is because, for one, like, I don't like the idea of having 2 lengthy review sessions on one podcast, because I like the way we've got it now. Right, we've got one review bit at the end, lots of really cool, interesting little stuff that builds up until that point. And then obviously then you've got parts where one person is talking about something that another person hasn't seen, and it's going to be like, oh, okay, fair enough. So it may end up being one of those things that we start to split the show into modules and start doing it along the lines of, okay, so we might end up recording the SmackDown and the Raw review as its own thing, as its own weekly review. And then like the actual LTW podcast, the one that we do every weekend, will be like news, all the extra little segments we do, fan feedback, and then maybe me and Matt grab 2 things from each other's show and say, okay, this is what we thought we wanted to bring up again and talk about. So it would mean a shorter weekend episode, but it would mean that you get like what you would be normally getting with those other reviews, you would be getting as a separate entity. But we're not even sure of that. I to be honest, I've got no idea with this whole thing coming up. We haven't even really been able to talk about it in general and come up with any sort of idea, you know. So that's the one thing that we really need to. Yeah. We need to know your guys' feedbacks, because ultimately as a channel, and we do want to cover it, and if SmackDown's becoming like a thing and it requires us to cover it, then we'll do it. But it's whether or not it fits in the boundaries of the show and how we change it going forward. I'm just not entirely sure yet, which is a bit awkward, but that's just the way it is. Like the other ideas that I came up with was like really modulating the show, so like cutting it up. So like SmackDown would be its own review and Raw would be its own review, and they go out in the week, and then you've got the Lucha review, and then you've got you can end up having like a lot more videos with shorter podcasts overall. Yeah. Or if there's enough demand for it, then we will go to the thing of, okay, so it means that we're going to have to review SmackDown and Raw on like the 2-hour podcast, which may end up being like 2.5 hours long by that sounds of it. It's all really down to what our audience wants, which is you guys, what you prefer and what would be easier for you to swallow every single week. Because to me, an idea of a 2.5 hour podcast, I'm like, oh, Jesus, that just seems like, imagine on a busy week, Matt, with lots of news and we got to review Raw and SmackDown. That's going to be
long.
Yeah. So we're not sure here, and we need your guys' feedback to know what we're going to do, because we're kind of clueless ourselves. But we've got a couple of months to figure it out, and once we do, we'll start. Maybe we'll try something, and then it might not work, so we go back. Just be aware that this change in WWE reflects on our podcast quite a bit. You know, we have to change and adapt to how it goes. But I'm sure we'll figure it out. I'm sure it'll be fine. And Matt, you're happy because you've got one less hour a week to watch, if that's the case. So,
well, you say that, but if it's 2 shit hours, then it's probably not.
Well, you know, you can always wait for the announcement, Matt. As soon as it launches, it's like, well, we've got the brand split. We're now making SmackDown 3 hours long.
And I'd be like, no,
Fuck. Yeah.
no.
Be interesting though. It is interesting.
It will be, because I mean, there's a lot of there is a lot of talent currently who aren't doing anything. Like, obviously last week we had the Shining Stars of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Like, they made their debut on Raw last week. Where were they this week? Nowhere.
Yeah. They had a badly green screened vignette.
Yeah, an awfully green screen sort of like video package. That was it. Like, there's plenty. Like, we didn't even have a women's match this week.
Yeah, but the thing is,
I know what they were doing, because it's the whole, Money in the Bank qualifying, but we didn't have a women's match. We didn't really have much. I mean, I nearly forgot that there was even a tag team match.
But the thing is with this, though, is if that's WWE's thought track of it, is we've got too many wrestlers and not enough time to fill them in. It's almost like they don't even take into effect the oversaturation of their product. It's like they don't even learn off the fact that WCW made this mistake and they paid for it dearly, right? With they went 3 hours, then they put Thunder on, right, which was 2 hours long.
Yeah,
and then suddenly people start getting really fucking burnt out of WCW because no one cared about what happened on Thunder. Now, obviously, there's no competition. WWE, so they're much more safe than WCW on that front. But this idea that we've got too many guys, but we can't fit them in, so we'll just put in more time on another show. I don't like that train of thought personally, and people might be going, "Well, doesn't that not make sense?" My idea is, if you don't have plans for someone, then why have you hired them?
Yeah.
Pick guys that you want to have, focus on them, give them the time, and people might be a little bit like, oh, you want people to get fired? No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about use your time better, because at the moment what they tend to do is that they're very much stuck into a formula where sometimes they've got 3 hours every week on a Monday night, and you're telling me that they can't fit in the majority of their roster. I don't even know how that's possible right there. And you might say, cutting apart like some of the matches that you have to put on and advertisement breaks. They may only have, let's say, like just over an hour to really give promos and stuff like this. Then why do you keep giving promos to certain people where it doesn't seem to be going anywhere? Some of the promos every single week. Matt, how many times have you reviewed it? That on a Monday night, it seems like some of the promos just seem to go nowhere.
Yeah. There's been quite a few where it's sort of like, this isn't pushing anything, this isn't developing anything, it's just, I'm here to talk.
Yeah. Instead of improving their product on an hourly basis, they're like, okay, so we can't fit everyone in, so we'll just make more hours to fit them in. And I'm like, that doesn't help at all. Now, obviously, it might do, because it might be one of those things that it frees up some of these writers and they can start focusing more on specific characters.
Yeah.
But I'm not so confident about that. But that's the hope that they could do here. But, it's one of those things that so for instance, like them SmackDown might give Rollins more time on Raw or something. I'm like, Rollins had more than enough time on Raw before he got injured. That wasn't the point. It was how he was used. That was the issue.
Yeah. And
I still think that's still going to be a problem going forward, but still. So a lot of ramifications with the brand split. You'll be taking SmackDown. I probably will be obviously I will be taking Raw. We don't know what's going forward. We really
sounds like a shitty divorce.
It does do a little. You will take this. You could take AJ Styles. I'll have Rollins, and we can all go on about our day. But what would you prefer, Matt? You've talked a lot about the things that we think will happen. What would you prefer? First of all, would you prefer them making 2 championships, or would you rather them staying 1?
I'd kind of prefer 2.
You want 1 per brand?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's just because of the difficulty that they. So they've had it a few times where it's been sort of like, you get your number 1 contender, but then there's no real way to develop a title feud if you're feuding with someone on the other brand.
There's nothing for that champion to do on the other. Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, that was their problem before as well, and also filling time because then, like, it would come off bad on the other brand when they didn't have a contender, and it was a little bit like, yeah, no, I get what you mean. It is, when I think of it that way, I'm kind of like, yeah, I kind of agree with you. What about what they did before, which I'm totally against, but which is having brand-specific pay-per-views and then only having the...
No brand-specific pay-per-views, but I it's tough. Because I don't know if I really want to see it go back to, like, this is the Raw commentary team and the SmackDown commentary team. I don't know if I want that.
Anyway, when I think of that, though, I just go back and think of, like, SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Right? Which, like, yeah, everyone knows I talk about SummerSlam 02 far too much, but I fucking love that pay-per-view. And it's one of those things that, like, it kind of was kind of fun. It kind of was refreshing as you go through the show, and so you get new voices, I kind of like that aspect of it. And the fact is that on pay-per-views, we might be able to hear more Ranallo calling matches. Yeah, I'm up for that, if that's the case.
I'm good for that.
Maybe they had this, thinking of that, the Mauro Ranallo thing about not moving up into Raw. I mean, clearly he's a superior commentator at this point. Maybe they knew this was coming, and that's part of the reason why they went and got him, so they could bleed him in. But the whole point was, okay, we want SmackDown to become this brand for us. Ranallo can be the main play-by-play for this brand as it gets more important. And that was always his planned role. I wonder if that was the case. I'm sure maybe it was. I like to think WWE had that much foresight. They didn't get to become a company of this size without having some foresight. And all the things that we think are wrong with how they book their show. As a company, they're managed fantastically, let's be honest, right? WWE very rarely make any mistakes when it comes to booking shows, getting management into place, paying their employees, right? You never hear any stories of WWE like this. Everything is always handled perfectly at this point in terms of a business standpoint for WWE, but yeah, I'm interested to see how this goes. I know a lot of people have been saying as well that, maybe it's going to stay with Shane and Stephanie still being the GM of Raw and then maybe a new GM going for SmackDown.
I don't like that.
I don't like that. I think they should honestly just put, Stephanie has a history of being a GM to SmackDown anyway, so it kind of makes sense if you want, you can have Raw, right? But I'll go to SmackDown. That's my old stomping ground anyway. She was the GM at that time where Paul Heyman was booking. So, yeah, there might be something there. I'm not sure. And then maybe her big grand plan, if they eventually want to do cross pay-per-views, is her grand plan is to eventually oust Shane from Raw.
Yeah, screw over Shane.
Yeah, so she gets some guys together, maybe, I don't know, something along those lines. So big news. I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks of it. Whether or not you guys are going to still be watching both shows, because myself and Matt may be splitting up and doing the show each. But, I mean, as fans, they're expecting you. WWE are damn near telling you have to watch 5 hours of wrestling every week. Yeah. At the very least. And that's not even the network stuff that they put up. So 5 hours. 5 hours. That's something wrong with that in my eyes. That really is.
I sometimes barely struggle to catch anything on the network.
Yeah. I watch some of it with my wife often in the evening, having dinner and something like that. Like Camp WWE or the Edge and Christian show. Not biggest fans of those.
Not fans of those shows at all. However, I'm really quite liking Table for Three.
Did you watch the one with Molly Holly?
I did.
And Candice Michelle. They showed the clip of like Candice when she fell off the fucking... Oh, God, that looks horrible.
I forgot the most recent Table for Three is Team Credgley.
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen that one
it's
yet.
good.
I want to. The thing is, though, going back to that Molly Holly one, the last one that she did, which obviously was recorded quite a while back because it had, like, Medusa and Ivory. And Molly Holly, she looked like she was, like, 25. Like, I couldn't explain it. Like, she looks so young. But here on the new one, I don't want to say that she looks old because she looks fat.
The one with Michelle McCool?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
Hair...
No. I think it's because I saw it and I was like, I've seen that one. But I'm pretty sure Michelle McCool wasn't in it. No, maybe she was and just wrote it off.
Yeah. The thing is, though, like, here's the thing. I'm going to say it to everyone here because people probably understood it by now. I think Molly Holly's fucking gorgeous, right? So seeing her there is like two different versions of her being gorgeous. So first of all, in the first table for free, it's like she's really super young, even though, you know, she's like, you know, she's in like late 30s at least, probably, right?
At least, yeah.
So she's gorgeous there. And then with the new one, she's got her hair a lot shorter. You know, she's kind of dressing a lot more, you know, like, I don't know how to explain it, but she dressed, no, not older, but like
provocative.
Yeah, maybe a little bit along those sense. But she looks like she's just a different version of Molly Holly. And I'm like, that's still fucking smoking. I don't know why it's just Molly Holly. I just think she's good looking, but there we go. All right then, Matt. Anything else you want to talk about on the network before we carry on? The Shane thing. Did you watch the Shane thing?
I haven't seen the Shane thing yet. No.
I
need to. I feel like I need to.
I've watched it. I felt bad for Mick Foley because it's one of those things where you could tell that, I mean, just like the whole interview thing just isn't his strength. And he did his best, but he just didn't feel comfortable.
I find it bizarre that they gave it to Foley.
Well, he explained at the start of it that Austin was like doing surgery or something. He had surgery and he can't fly. So,
okay. Jericho did one once on the network.
They might be thinking it because he's a talent or something like that at the moment. Like back when he did the one with Stephanie,
he wasn't a talent.
Or at the very least he wasn't active on storyline at that point. But maybe,
yeah.
But I will say it's worth a watch if you've never heard any sort of anything story about Shane and sort of like a lot of the stuff on there I've kind of heard before. Although some of it I think is pretty good. And the only reason I've heard it before is because I keep my ear quite close to the news stories that break every so often. And like, you know, when he talks about the reason why there is one great bit though, Matt, that you have to check out. There's a bit when Mick Foley asks him, like, do you have any problem with like Triple H? And
really?
Shane looks at him and he kind of gives this smirk. He says, no, of course I don't have any problem with Triple H. He makes my sister happy. But the smile that he gives, I'm like a little bit like, that's a smile of someone who's like, I know what you're getting at here. And it's kind of, there's something there, but I don't want to tell the truth. And I'm just going to gloss over it. You have to see it.
And that's a shit-eating PR spin.
Yes. Yeah.
Wink.
Yeah. So honestly, just watch it for that moment because the smile he gives is just this ever so slight grin as he's like, well, sure. Yeah, sure. Why would I have any problem with him? And it's a little bit like, come on, Shane. There's something. And Mick even goes in on it. He's like, really? I'm kind of getting some feeling like there is. And then obviously Shane's covering his tracks. But he's like, no. Obviously he's fantastic and everything like this. But there was a slight moment there. I was like, with all the rumors we've heard, apparently with Shane and Triple H not getting on and Triple H trying to solidify his place as the CEO elect.
The heir, the new heir sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting kind of family dynamics there.
The turn of events.
Yeah. I'm more interested in that than I am actually with like the McMahon drama that's played out on TV, but still. Anyway, another big news story this week, which actually broke last week, but it broke after myself and Stacey did that recording. So, and I'm quite glad because I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, Matt, is the Cody Rhodes stuff that came out. So Cody Rhodes asked for his release, which shocked a lot of people. He was granted that release, which didn't shock a lot of people. And over the course of the week, his wife, her real name's Brandy, I think, but she went by the name of Eden Styles. She did the announcing. You probably saw her on Raw and on pay-per-views and stuff. She handed in her release and was granted as well. So they're both gone. That would be interesting. And we could talk about Cody Rhodes' body of work and how I think he's probably one of WWE's most versatile talents that they've had in a long time.
I would put him down as one of their most underrated talents.
And I would agree with you. The thing is with this is that, remember a news story, Matt? Let's take you back a little while. Remember when his father died?
I can't help but feel there should be strings to this.
What do you mean?
Let's travel back in time. And harp music plays.
Yeah. So when Dusty passed away,
yes,
there was a lot of rumors going around at that time, and I didn't give them any merit. With the idea that Cody wanted to go back to being Cody. He wanted to be Cody Rhodes, right? He wants to make his father proud and be taken as a serious wrestler and taken with some respect. But back then I said, well, maybe they might do the thing, because back then they were teasing the Stephen Amell stuff, right? So I thought maybe they'll do that and then they'll go down the line. But they never did. And they carried on with Stardust, and they basically killed off the character to the point that, like, you barely saw him, and when you did, it was basically worth.
When he was running around with the bloody...
the Ascension.
Yeah, them. I forgot who they were.
So it's one of those things where it's like, we were hearing rumors of him apparently wanting to go back as Cody. I'm pretty sure there was an interview where Cody came out and said, actually, no, I don't mind. I like being Stardust. I like it. And we were hearing reports of that. Cody set everything straight in a very well-worded, but in some points scathing statement regarding his release. Did you read the entire statement, Matt?
I did.
You did?
I know. I sort of saw it and I was like, that's a lot of reading. And I was like, I'll have to come back to that. And Jesus.
So, first of all, he said, this is going to be my only statement on this. I'm not going to do any podcasts or anything like that. Which fair enough.
Fair enough, yep.
If he wants to do it that way, he wants to do it that way. So here's a couple of things that he said. So first of all, he speaks very highly of Vince and Triple H. He thanks them even. He says, thank you for giving me the opportunity and to go out there and perform and do my role and make a lot of money. And clearly he made a lot of money. He was even saying that he doesn't even look down at the breakdowns of his paychecks. So clearly his money is not a problem for the guy. Looking at Cody Rhodes, right? He's got like if he's not over a decade, he must be fucking close to a decade of being in WWE. He was in there we're talking about, like, he was tag team champions with Hardcore Holly, right? That's how far back he was wrestling around for. So he's been in WWE for a long time, and he always, he looks like the guy who's got his head screwed on straight, and he's saved his money, and money just isn't a problem for the guy. One of the things that you can get over more than anything in this statement is that money just clearly is not a factor in him leaving. It's legacy, right? It's his career and how he'll be remembered, and his dedication and drive to try and be remembered as fondly as his father was, right? Which I think is very admirable, by the way, because he could easily, like a lot of people, I don't want this to come across as bad, he could easily be a Dolph Ziggler and come across every now and then in interviews and say, well, I'm not happy about the way things are going, and, I wish I was used better, or I don't get enough mic time and stuff like this. And then when it comes time to do a Wade Barrett or a Cody Rhodes and go, well, you know what, fuck you, I'm going to go elsewhere and try and ply my trade. Whenever that seems to come around for Dolph, he always seems to get talked around into signing a new deal.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas Cody here, he's just like, enough is enough. I'm gone.
Yeah.
And he leaves.
Especially
he tells like this,
sort of like, I'm not Dusty, I'm Cody. And it's like, the fuck? It's like, I think the biggest scathing is like, I've gone to enough writers, but they're clearly too busy hitting on divas.
Yeah, that was if he fired any shots, it was at the writers. I can understand, Matt, because that's the one thing I wanted to center on most of all. It really comes across here that Cody Rhodes was in a position where he was shouting ideas at a blank wall, and that's essentially what he was doing, right? That he was going up to these writers and giving ideas. He said in his statement, I wanted to be Cody Rhodes again. I came up with tons of ideas. I would go to them and they would act as if their laptops were on when clearly they weren't. Or I would send them emails and they were never opened, never even looked at, never replied to it. And these guys get on their high horses because they have, unfortunately, a lot of power. Right?
I can just imagine that he's sort of like, there were like times where he'd sort of approach them and just like, guys, can I just have a quick word? And it's like, all of a sudden, look, busy phone call. Important business things happening.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're the index.
Yeah. Like the thing is, to me, like even Randy Orton put up on his thing that he's really sad that Cody went because he considered him a friend. Cody probably came across as probably one of the most professional guys out there, right? That way, if he was asking for your time, he was more than likely going to make the most of it, right? He was more than likely going to make that time count.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can understand exactly this guy's frustration. I can just imagine it. I probably would have lost my mind a lot sooner than he did. It's very like the way he words this statement is like he's sitting in the locker room and he's got his face paint there and he's like, I don't want to do this shit. Like I haven't wanted to do this shit for 6 months. I've been asking him to do something else.
Yeah.
And clearly it's dead.
The Goldust statement.
Yeah.
How he's not planning on going anywhere. So.
Yeah, fair enough. If he wants to work, his brother leaving shouldn't have any impact on him, you know. He doesn't have the time on his side that Cody does to make another run. This is probably the best run that Goldust is going to have.
Oh, don't say that. Why you say that?
Let's be honest. He's not at his age, right, going to go to New Japan and make a new name for himself, right? Or he's not going to go to Ring of Honor and make a new name for himself. It just ain't going to happen. Cody's got another 10 years if he wants it. And he can make a real big name for himself.
Yeah.
If I were New Japan, I would have called him already. If I were Ring of Honor, I would have tried to call him. TNA, if I were TNA, I would obviously try and hire him. But if I were Cody, I'd stay well clear. I really wouldn't go. Because just everyone's general thought of TNA is just so negative right now.
Well, somebody else is apparently going there.
Who?
There's rumours that a certain big guy.
Right, I know he was joking about that now.
Well, you say that.
I think he would be smarter than that personally, but still. Still, maybe, you know, there's not as many slots out there as people thought. But honestly, if you're going to ask me, let's say I'm the owner of Ring of Honor, I'm the owner of New Japan, and you're asking me who would I hire over Cody Rhodes or Ryback, I'm hiring Cody Rhodes. I like Ryback, but Cody Rhodes, he is a better wrestler.
Yep.
He's more versatile. He's proved that. You can put him in any role that you currently want him to do, and he'll do a decent job at it.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's comedy, being a heel, being a face, doing wacky shit, doing serious stuff, you know? I think this is a big loss for WWE, and I think it's very indicative that clearly I don't think Cody's the only person that feels this way. I'm sure there's tons of people in that locker room who feel like they are trying to fight a system just to get their voices heard. For some of these guys that maybe Vince doesn't have time to speak to and vouch on their behalf, they have to go to these writers and come up with ideas. And clearly, by the sounds of it, they ain't got time for nobody's ideas. They've got their jobs and that's it. Which you think with the amount of fans telling them that the writing sucks on this show, that it'll at least be a little bit more open.
Yeah.
At least for the idea to say
something to us with a change, with an idea.
But that doesn't seem to be the case. But listen, I understand. I've got huge respect for Cody. Like I said, I'm shocked that he stayed on as long as he did. And there seems to be an air about WWE a lot recently that seems to be coming across that a lot of wrestlers are realizing I don't need them. I don't need WWE. If I make my money, like, you know, you hear a lot on the podcast, how Gallows and Anderson were saying it on the Jericho podcast. They didn't need the money from WWE. It just suited them at the time and they wanted a new challenge.
Yeah.
The indies seem to be more than good enough for getting these guys the money that they want. So,
what was it Kevin Owens said himself, which was sort of like he actually took a pay cut going to NXT.
Yeah. Daniel Bryan took a pay cut going to the first NXT and when he initially came into WWE. Oh. In fact, in his book, he tells the story of him being on a phone call to Vince and Vince being shocked that Bryan was telling him, I can make more money on the indies, so it's fine. You don't have to hire me back. So Vince was like, what? Like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that played a big part.
Like, I can make more money doing less hours. You know, shows.
Yeah. And that way I'm selling my own merch and you're not taking a cut of it. And, you know, a lot of these other things, I'm getting name recognition on my own basis, not by the name that you've given me. And So I'm sure that plays a big factor into it. I think that it's better that wrestlers like Cody Rhodes and people in his position realize that they do have more power than they think they do.
Yeah.
Especially if they're as talented as Cody Rhodes. That they can afford to throw their weight around a little bit. And if it doesn't go their way, then there's greener pastures around the corner on that sense. So huge respect to him. He says he's going to stay wrestling. I think he said also that he wants to try his hand at acting and making a few appearances here and there. Best of luck to him. And his wife as well, because he struck it like lucky with Eden.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, she is gorgeous. Let's be honest there. Jeez. Wow, like almost an hour's gone past and we're not even through the news. I knew it was going to be a long one. Hogan's legal case on Gorka. I want to talk a little bit about this. It was revealed this week that the head of PayPal is funding Hogan's legal case. This isn't rumor. The guy has come out and said, yeah, I'm doing it. I've put $10 million in the legal fund to bring down Gorka. And people may be wondering, well, why is that the case? Gorka outed, his name is Peter Thiel, right? Who's the head of PayPal. Clearly got a lot of money to his name, right? PayPal being a very big online payment service, right? That I use almost every day.
That I use as well.
They revealed that his sexual preference, without his consent, of course, which I don't know why you would go for the guy who owns PayPal. I don't imagine that's selling that well. Like, as a news, I wouldn't really care, but still. And he's not like agreeing with what Hogan did, but he's using him as a pawn to shut Gorka down.
Yeah.
Which I think, honestly, I hope that Gorka does go down. I think it's a scumbag site. And Hogan stands, if he's being used as a pawn, I'm sure he fucking loves it because he's going to take a lot of money from it if that's the case. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up a little bit because I thought it was very interesting, all things considered, that Hogan's being funded by the guy who owns and is the head of PayPal. So interesting there, interesting. But I honestly hope they succeed. As much as I dislike Hogan and the things that he's done, doesn't mean I want, out of spite for what he's done, for another group of dipshits and arseholes to come across as they do. So, if you ply in that sort of trade where you're trying to, essentially leaking very private information, that's not good. That's not good, but still. Fan feedback then, Matt. That was our news. Jeez, that took a long time to get through, but there we are. We've got some fan questions. Mm-hmm.
As a little... Before we get started onto the fan feedback or anything, I saw something online, and I would kind of like your input on it.
Okay, go for it.
Now, the whole sort of like kill, shag, marry or whatever it is.
No, what's that?
Like the whole, I give you three options.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought, what's funny? I thought that was an Irish town. You said kill, shag, marry. I was like, is that
to be fair, you stick an accent onto it. It could very well be.
It could be, yeah. Okay, fair enough. So kill, shag, marry.
Brie
Are we
Bella.
honestly doing this? Okay.
Right, Brie Bella, Lana, Renee Young.
Marry Renee Young, shag Lana, and kill Bella. Easy.
Yeah.
We'll come up with harder ones than that.
No,
what about you?
I saw it as well, and I was sort of like, well, it's kind of a no-brainer.
You went the same as me then?
I went exactly the same way.
Yeah. Renee Young is marriage material, but Lana is just fucking, oh, God. Well, I've already said it here on the show. I said it last week with my wife around, so. Okay, fan feedback then, Matt. You've got a question from Twitter, so do you want to drop that on us first?
I do. The Twitter question.
Mm-hmm.
I've lost it.
It's gone.
It has. No, it was from DPR Gaming, and I know he posts on the Facebook page, so I don't know if it's sort of come through twice.
Okay, go on.
How would we react if Cena was to bury Reigns?
To bury Reigns? I don't think that'll happen. First of all, I think he's going to endorse the shit out of him, but... What do you mean bury Reigns if he comes in and just destroys him?
I would assume so.
How would I feel?
How would you react? Yeah.
It's so out of the, I don't think it ever happened.
It's so far out of left field.
Yeah.
It's sort of I don't even know how I'd react.
I wouldn't like it. I think that I don't like the fact that they've built up Reigns the way they have. I still want Reigns to be a top star. I just want him to be one of the top heels in the company.
Yeah. I mean, he can be a top star. He just needs to be a heel for a while.
I think I would be angry with it. I think it would be like Cena all over again, sort of thing. Like,
What a shock! Cena's burying talent.
Yeah. I don't think it will happen though. I mean, they've got AJ Styles. AJ Styles is endorsing Reigns, which I'd hope he was intelligent enough to realize that ain't going to solve it. In fact, that's going to make things worse. But
yeah.
But still, I'd still be pissed.
Agreed.
Because as I said, it's not. We've always said here on this show, Matt, that we want Reigns to become a star. We want more stars. We want mainstream stars to break out, make the product more hot. It's just the way he's been used is frustrating. He should be the biggest heel in WWE right now, and he's not. So that's the bottom line over there. Are you on the same sort of thought track, though?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
I was just getting to the time. It's just sort of like it's simple. It's just a waste of an opportunity.
Yeah. And I don't think they would do that. They're really backing Reigns no matter what. I mean, they've been so fucking stubborn on the guy. So still. What's cool about this week on fan feedback, Matt? I think this is the first week we've had at least one question from all of our different social media avenues. Because I've got one from Facebook. I've got two I had two. But one of them was about the brand split, which we've kind of already answered. But 2 emails this week for questions for this show. And then we've got the comments, and then we've got Twitter. I think that's the first one we've got like everywhere across the board.
That's the boxes, covered all bases.
That's pretty cool. All right, Mario is a long-time listener, first-time questioner, so welcome, mate. Thank you very much. He has 2 questions that were left over a week ago, but we missed it because, as I said earlier on, the recording last week was a little bit earlier on in the week. So he gets first slot this week because he's been waiting the longest. He asks, if we were WWE's creative team, how would we book the Wyatt family back to greatness? Tough question.
That is a tough question.
I thought about this very hard. I think I have an answer to this.
Okay.
Now, I think we had a question before of how would we book the Wyatt family so there's something special. I'm going to go one further. So, I mean, the one thing that we said back when we answered that question beforehand was turn them babyface because it's kind of the only thing that they've done. Not done with them. So I don't even think you have to change them drastically. You change a couple of things about their promos. Even states that maybe if you want to go a little bit further, that all of his Fireflies are also part of his family and he fights on behalf of them, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
But they always went with the thing that they always talked about something that they never did with the Wyatts. The whole thing of them burning down the establishment, right? And the Wyatts never really did that, right? The whole thing was like, we're going to burn everything down and replace it in our own image. They never, because they were heels all their time, they never went for the McMahons or anything like that. They never did, which always seemed very odd to me. So why not then make it so they're like, you know what? We are going to burn the establishment down. We're going to take out all the figures that the fans believe is part of the reason why the product is in a poor place. So I'm thinking Vince, maybe even Triple H because he's the evil guy behind it, right? Talk to Kevin Dunn and ask him to take an on-screen beating, right? Just the fact that fans always blame him. People would love that. Make them Matt the face NWO, the poison that will destroy the establishment.
Yeah, I mean we've discussed this before.
Yeah,
this way of doing it.
The other idea I had as well, Matt, is that while I was initially against them doing this, because I like the idea of the character being completely non-existent and just referred to, is Sister Abigail actually casting an actress. Obviously, they're not going to cast like a world-class actress, but an actress to play Sister Abigail.
Yeah.
And she doesn't come out to the ring, but she's in certain promos.
Video packages.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that instead of Bray being the one that calls the shots, you see Bray in a different light where he's the one receiving the orders and being very much like, okay, I'll do this for you, Yeah. I'll tear down the walls like you asked me to. And then maybe down the line, if you want to get a little bit more interesting, you could have her come out, but like not. I don't want it to be coming out to the ring every time, but make a small sort of thing.
It was like sort of like I'll do it all if you ask it from me, sort of thing.
Yeah, and you can almost, one of those things. They could come up with some good ideas where you've got her voice just gently in the background in Wyatt's promos, barely a whisper, So, Wyatt's talking, rambling on, and all you can hear is just this very, just almost like innocent voice, just quiet. And that's that. What you don't show sometimes is more important than what you do, especially when it comes to horror. And that's obviously where it's inspired from. So, yeah, I think that's something that you could do with them. I think you have to turn a baby face, though. I think that's the only thing left, really. But it's a shame. So it really is. I mean, we talked about it before, the tragedy that is the Wyatts, that they could have been just so much more. And it just never ended up being that way. But alas, is there anything else that you...
No, I don't think there is anything else. I mean, that's kind of the best way for it. It's quite Undertaker-esque.
Yeah.
Where he's face, but he's like everything screams that should be a heel.
Yeah, you just have to change some bits. Obviously, you can't blast the crowd anymore, and he attacks people there's some people on the roster that, believe me, the fans would pop huge for the Wyatts taken out. Roman Reigns being one of them, right?
Yeah.
So you have them.
But they did that, anyone but you, Roman, and it fucking sunk. Well, mostly because they just fed him to Roman Reigns.
Yeah. And, one of the things they could do with it as well is that, you play up with if you want them to really fight the establishment, you have it so, for instance, like Stephanie McMahon is back in control of SmackDown. Let's just go from the brand split. And Bray Wyatt's on that show too.
Yeah.
You do a thing where she starts getting a lot of preferential treatment for a couple of guys, right? Which she wasn't exactly afraid of doing beforehand. The heels would get preferential treatment.
Yeah.
You could have Bray Wyatt as the Eater of Worlds, the silent judge who decides, that isn't right. I'm going to do something about that. The only injustice that is allowed here is my injustice because that's on my terms.
Yeah.
So he goes out and in a way, he's an equalizer. That could get the fans one on his side. I think a lot of people would get into that. And you can have can you imagine a lot of these heels trying to get their head out of Dodge because Bray Wyatt's chasing them? There's a lot of things you could do there, but we'll have to see how it goes. His other question is about King Cuerno in Lucha Underground and how he seems to be coming out of his feuds on the losing side. What is the potential as a top star for Cuerno? And is it possible for him to become Lucha Underground champion? I didn't do this on the Lucha review, Matt, because I thought you would want to weigh on on this. So that's the reason why I answered it here. I like King Cuerno. I think he's decent. I think he's hurt his standing in the company by some of his statements, and he's clearly he wants to leave and go to WWE. He wanted to be in that Cruiserweight Classic that they're doing, but Lucha Underground blocked him. I think he's got potential, but I think...
I've seen him in the Cruiserweight Classic as well.
Yeah, I think he would have been pretty good. The thing is, though, Matt, with him, I think Lucha Underground has plans for the guys like Cage, Dragon Azteca.
Yeah.
Guys sort of like that. I think Cuerno, they look at him a little bit like Jake the Snake in a way, where you wrestle him to get ready for your big main event feud.
Yeah.
And it's like a test. You'll have a good match with Cuerno. He'll put on a good match with you. And you can beat him and then move on to other stuff.
It's kind of like, remember at one point where Ziggler referred to himself as the measuring stick?
Yeah. It's kind of like
I don't really want to go as far as to say Cuerno is their Ziggler, but kind of.
Yeah, it's obviously not with how they wrestle, but in the sort of same role that they're in a little bit, yeah. It's anything's possible in Lucha Underground. It's much more likely for King Cuerno to become world champion than it is Dolph Ziggler, let's say that.
Yeah.
But I just don't see the big title win for him soon. I just think they've got other people in play for that. I think that you've got some of the women on the roster have more of a chance of becoming the world champion before him.
Well, there was that spoiler.
Yeah, right. So it is a shame. Like I said, I do like King Cuerno, but maybe they might be thinking down the line. I mean, clearly his loyalty isn't exactly with Lucha Underground. He's voiced his desire to leave. So when they are writing the show, I'm not saying that they'll be spiteful of him, but it's a little bit like,
that could be in sort of like the back of their mind.
Yeah, he clearly wants to go, so why should we spend our time building this guy up and building up his profile when he fucks off? Then that's wasted time for us on the star we won't have again. So I'm
I was
sure
about to say they've done a very similar thing with Ricochet, but then Prince Puma has been their champion.
Yeah, and it's not as if like Ricochet has come out and said like he wasn't like I know he said he was a bit pissed that he couldn't be in the Classic, but he didn't come out and say, well, oh fuck, like King Quino was very vocal about his disdain for Underground not allowing him. Ricochet was kind of like, well, I've got other stuff to do, I'm fine.
I'm in the Super Junior on New Japan.
Yeah, which was Matt. You've been gushing over that match for the last like hour, so. But still,
I'm alone in it.
Yeah,
like I'm the only person.
Well, who loves that match? There's loads of people that love that match.
Vader.
I've been hearing about it on social media all of today.
Big Van Vader doesn't like that match.
Well,
apparently him and Ricochet got into a little Twitter debate.
I'd like to think Ricochet is so fucking talented.
Because it was pretty much Vader just sort of like it was nothing more than a choreographed dance routine.
He lives in a different era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, it's not even the fact that him and Ricochet got into a fight. It was just basically, he was just like, I got a Road Warrior pop, dude.
Yeah, I mean, like, not only that as well, it's like, he should know that, like, the crowd over in Japan probably fucking loved that match. But obviously, clearly they did.
I was going to say, if anyone knows Japan.
Yeah, and it's Super Juniors. It's what they expect from a Super Juniors, well. I would hope that Vader would be a little bit more smarter. Well, yeah, a little bit less dickish about it. I know that his whole deal was that he was physical, and that whole thing about him was trying to blur the lines between reality and what was going on. But that time has passed. Kayfabe's dead. Let's be honest. Don't do the fucking Vince Russo thing. They're great tumblers. Let's not do that. Yeah. Dale Smith left this message on our Facebook. He's got a list of things that he thinks will improve the WWE product. He wants our thoughts on it. Mm-hmm. Storyline idea: Rollins wins the title from Roman. Roman fakes an injury and goes and reinvents himself. Involving a Sting in a storyline with AJ during his title run with Seth. That's so far like mental. I don't even know, like faking an injury and reinventing. Why not just do an injury and kayfabe injury? I wouldn't like part of the storyline to be Roman faking an injury to be off TV, but no, I listen. It's your idea here, but I'm not the biggest fan of it personally. Sting, fine, but I think he'd be better in like a GM role now. He's retired or something like that. I don't think he should be managing anyone, but AJ against Seth, I'm totally up for that. I don't think Seth's winning the championship, by the way. But
you not?
No. I think that. Oh, Matt, he's keeping that title until very least SummerSlam is Reigns. They want to establish him. He's not losing that title. I guarantee you that. But.
To be fair, I'm kind of seeing that it's going to be a Shield triple threat SummerSlam.
Yeah, it seems to be going that way. So he's got a lot of other stuff here. Some stuff I'm like okay with. Some stuff I'm like no. So he wants to do away with the PG-13 bullshit, as he calls it. Yeah, I mean, fine. I'd like a little bit more of an edgy, more adult theme to the show. He says he wants to see blood. I'm like, okay, in certain matches, that's fine because blood enhances it. I don't want them to start using blood for blood's sake. Some companies like CZW focus far too much on blood to make a match when it should be an exclamation point to an already very good match.
Yeah.
The one thing he does say here is that he wants chair shots to the head to come back.
No.
That's the one I'm like firmly, no. There's a huge reason that chair shots to the head were banned, and it was a very fucking good reason that it was clearly being linked to fucking brain damage. You can't take shots like that over to head. I urge anyone to go back to The Rock versus Mick Foley in that title match.
Jesus, and the amount of times he rung Foley's bell with those chairs.
Yeah. Like I watch that now, and like I'm like, fuck me. Like I don't. The match didn't need that. It didn't. And no, it's a very good reason they don't do that. And I think ultimately, like, yeah, it'd be great for people to go, to be a little bit more violent, maybe in the wrestling. Maybe it's got a little bit too much safe. I don't want violence for violence sake when it comes to wrestling because you end up with fucking needles being pierced through your cheek. right? Which everyone's seen that picture. It's floated around. That disgusts me. That's not what wrestling is. Violence, to a certain degree, enhances a match. But if you're doing violence and it genuinely has an impact on someone's long-term health, then you shouldn't be doing it. You know? Great wrestlers can put on great matches without any... Look at fucking Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. Most people... Matt, that's your favourite match of all time. You said that here on this podcast many times. There was no blood in that. There was no chair shots to the head.
I don't even think that match needed it.
Yeah. Great wrestlers can put on great matches without anything along those lines. It's one of those things where... Like I said, I'm very wary that some people, they want the sort of violence to come back, but violence for violence sake in a wrestling match, you end up with death matches, and I've got no time for them. I think they're fucking blood porn, and I think they're not indicative of what wrestling is. And I think there's a lot of guys that did that stuff to hide the fact that they really didn't know how to make a good match with wrestling moves.
Well, look at a lot of early ECW.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, you love ECW, but even you will admit
I love
it,
ECW,
right?
but I'll happily turn around and go, Sandman couldn't wrestle for shit.
Yeah. And he had to rely on all that violence to get him by. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we're past that now as well, but still. There's some matches where the blood and the violence really increases it. Like, I know I've been yapping on about it, but Mariposa versus Sexy Star, the violence in that match absolutely enhanced that match. That's a match...
That was necessary.
That was necessary to get that match over because it was a blood feud. I still wouldn't have liked chair shots over the head. They did that on Lucha Underground a couple of weeks back, and I blasted them for doing it. I just don't think you should be doing it. I think there's plenty of evidence out there to suggest that chair shots are pretty well linked to fucking brain damage. And I wouldn't want anyone to be doing that just for the sake of it.
I think part of the reason why WWE especially wouldn't be going back to chair shots to the head is the sheer fact that they've become almost like a forerunner of concussion. Like one of the main guys in the States when it comes to concussion is a former WWE guy.
Yeah.
And it'd be a bit ridiculous for WWE to go, yeah, well, fuck it.
Yeah, they're getting so many lawsuits over that shit that they won't go back to it. But even then, that's not a reason. Their reason for not doing it is a good reason, right? I'm really on board with them with that. But yeah, still we are. It's two different. Like, some people just go back to wanting the Attitude Era kind of feel and stuff back into it. And I get it. Some things back then were a lot better. And like, you know, WWE's insistence sometimes to, like, in the Hell in a Cell matches, not seeing any blood in those matches just seems a little bit off to me.
It kind of, yeah. It seems like the sort of environment for some, but
yeah. But at the end of the day, as long I want these guys to be wrestling safe. I want them to end their careers after 20 years of wrestling and not struggle to walk.
I mean, I raised this argument with you during the week, and it's like, well, you could do that, and they could completely throw everything out the window. But if you want the Attitude Era back and their mentality towards, almost like towards wrestler health, just imagine the condition that Daniel Bryan would be. He'd still be wrestling today.
Yeah, he'd still be he'll be wrestling and doing permanent damage to his brain. Right? Let's be honest. I know it's harsh, but we had to bring this up at some point. Listen, you go through the list of wrestler deaths around about the time of the Monday Night Wars. A lot of people lost their fucking lives because of it. What was it? British Bulldog died because of it, right? That he landed on a fucking, you know, on one of the trapdoor things, I think before the Ultimate Warrior or something like that, injured his back, and in a race to get back, he started fucking popping pills and shit like that. And that was like that's just the sort of stuff that happened all the fucking time back then, you know? I don't want to go back to those days. And there was a lot of wrestlers that lost their life because they were taking pain medication that was eventually rotting away their heart, right? They were taking drugs and drink to get through the long grind, you know, and the pain on their bodies. There's some guys out there that even nowadays, you ask Austin if he would like better feeling in his back and in his knees, he'd probably bite your hand off for it. He would, you know, I'm sure he still has problems with it still to this day, You know? So, yeah, still. The other question here is, where is Orton, Kane, and Big Show? Orton is at the back end of his injury. He should be back soon. Kane and Big Show are those guys that WWE feel they can use if and when they need a certain guy to fill a certain role. That's essentially the answer there. But yeah. To be honest, though, Dale, we've been needing a talk about wrestlers' health in wrestling anyway. So I'm actually glad you brought this up. So fair play on that. But yeah, I'm firmly against headshot.
I seem to recall there was also talk about like they need to change the Titantrons.
Yeah, Titantrons.
100%.
Yeah, 100% on that. I think at very least for the top 4 pay-per-views on the year, I think they should be doing something a little bit more special. Absolutely in agreement with that. Absolutely. Michael Jackson says, no disrespect to Matt, but Stacey made for one of the best shows, period, last week.
Oh.
So, I just want to add that in there. Kind words. And like I said before, Stacey was quite nervous before recording, so she was quite happy with the positive feedback. But thanks for that. No, Matt, don't take it. He said no disrespect to you.
I'll go.
Listen, if I was away and you replaced me with someone for a week, it would be interesting. It's just a different voice, Matt, okay? All right? Don't take it so much to heart. Grow your tits and then we'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. I like something to fondle in the middle of my podcast. 65 days.
Just for that focused edge.
Yeah. Kane St. Dennis asks, who do we think is the greatest wrestler ever to not hold a world championship? 3 names spring to mind initially. Ted DiBiase, Mr. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But the winner to me has to be Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
I think for a guy who got over on the mainstream, it's funny, Matt. I go up to a wrestling fan that doesn't know its history as much as, wrestling fans that listen to podcasts like ours and stuff. If you go up to and ask to them and just naturally say, Roddy Piper was a world champion, wasn't he? They'll probably go, yeah, of course he was. Roddy Piper was a world champion. Of course he was.
Yeah.
And then when you reveal to them...
then you got the real ones. Then you've got some of those who's like, Roddy Piper was a world champion. They're like, who?
No, I think people know who Roddy Piper is. That's the whole point. That, he broke into the mainstream for a while,
Yeah.
Like Jake the Snake, people naturally assume he was world champion. He wasn't. But because he was so much of a character, and people... Huh?
British Bulldog?
I don't think he's on the level of a Piper.
Yeah.
Personally. And that's why I go with Piper. Because, he was in the main event of the first WrestleMania. He wrestled tons of very high-profile matches. He was so well known at that time in the mainstream. Roddy Piper, Rowdy Roddy Piper. To never have been a world champion, like I said, it's just shocking. And a lot of general fans, they just naturally assume he was because of how great he was and how well known he was. But no.
Yeah. Do you know what I started watching recently?
Go on.
Legends House.
Oh, really?
I've never seen it.
Okay, so what's your thoughts on it? Go on.
I don't mind it.
It's all right. It's a bit trash TV.
It's a bit trash TV, and I like trash TV, so I'm good with that.
Sometimes, Matt, at the end of the day, you just need to shut your brain off and watch a little bit.
And listen to Tony Atlas laughing.
That is, you kind of you feel happier when he laughs.
How could I not have a smile on my face now?
That's a laugh that comes from the soul. So, good on Tony Atlas. But yeah, I'm going with Piper. What are you going with anyway? There's a lot of big names there. DiBiase, Perfect, Piper, Roberts.
Because I was still thinking Jade Snake, but then to be fair, I think you've raised a damn fine argument.
What with Piper?
With Piper, yeah.
I think Piper got into the mainstream a little bit more than Jake did. Personally,
I don't know whether Piper was more famous than Jake, but
it's up to debate.
Yeah.
But still, that's what I go with. Anthony Smash asks, who do we think is the biggest flop from the indies when coming to WWE? Huh?
Nothing. I didn't say it.
What did you say? Go on, tell me. What did you say? Did you say Apollo Crews?
I didn't say Apollo Crews.
Okay. Well, I do have the proper answer. Without a doubt, I know the answer without even thinking.
Yeah, Apollo Crews.
It's not Apollo Crews. I've got a guy who was signed up. Everyone was saying that he was the greatest person. He was going to mold wrestling. He was going to be fantastic. He didn't even make it close to like anywhere on NXT. Like he got onto NXT, but no one really gave a shit. He was nowhere even close to the main roster. Very
Chris Hero.
No. Well, he is like my second one. My biggest flop, without a doubt, just because of all the fanfare that came up behind him, and everyone was telling me, I mean, personally, maybe this is a thing more towards me. I was hearing from everyone around that time, this is the guy you need to look at. He's the real deal right here. It's Sami Callihan.
Oh,
Solomon
yeah.
He came in with so much fanfare.
The moment there of who?
Yeah. I think that even kind of proves my point. That like he came in, like everyone was telling me this. Oh man, Tony, this is the guy right here. He could be, he could be serious contender on Raw at some point. I'm like, okay, fair enough. There's a few guys on the indies that fly under my radar. Sure, I'll give a watch. And then I watched, and I was like, really? This is the guy you're talking about? Like, I'm not that impressed. And then things just got worse and worse and worse and worse. I had so many people telling me that he was the real deal. And then he failed pretty much right out the gate. He never even really made an impact. So I'll go with Sami Callihan as the biggest flop. What about you? Chris Hero is my number 2, though. Chris Hero. But Chris Hero, the reason I didn't give it to him, sorry to interrupt you, but the reason why I didn't give it to Chris Hero is because I felt like he could have been something, but WWE just didn't like his weight. That's what got in between him.
Yeah. To be fair, you raise a very good point with Callihan. He did come in with so much hype. I think my only problem is I'm really upset with the position that Apollo Crews is in now. So I can't put him as the biggest indie flop, but he's not in a very good position as a former indie guy. If you compare him to Owens and Zayn, for example.
Yeah, I think that maybe it's one of those things where it's very early for him on that roster, so hopefully things will just turn around a little bit.
It's very early for everyone on that roster, but they're still doing better than he.
Yeah. Well, except for Corbin. Corbin's not doing that well. So
right. Even if it was pre-show, Corbin's been on more pay-per-views than Crews has.
Yeah. Fair enough. But I think, I have to go with Sami Callihan. That's the first name that came up to me. I know he asked for his release, but even then, I think he saw the writing was on the wall. I think he was getting close to being released anyway at that point.
Yeah.
And all due respect to the guy, because obviously, clearly, maybe things just didn't work out, or maybe, for whatever reason, the gimmick and the chances didn't come up. But he never looked to me like a guy that WWE would be interested in anyway. It seemed odd that he would hire him, but still. That's our questions for this week.
What was his name?
Solomon Crow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the hacker, which was basically his gimmick.
Which was very quickly dropped.
Yeah, pretty much. If you remember that apparently his sister was supposed to come in, that was the Nazi lover herself, fucking Zara Scriber.
Yeah.
Rollins' other half, but still. So if you guys want to leave any questions, I'm looking at the time. We've gone so, I knew this was going to be a long show. If you guys want to leave any questions, you can do so in the comment section below, and all of our social media outlets, you can see them on the graphics or in the description. Plenty of ways to get in contact with us. Like I said, this week you guys showed more than ever how the different ways of getting in contact with us. So clearly we're getting something through to you guys because you guys are using all the different outlets. Fantastic. Great work. That's great. Okay. It's time for the new segment, Matt. Are you ready for this?
I am.
So here's the thing. I kind of stole this idea a little bit. I'll just straight up say that from the Starters podcast. It's an NBA podcast. Great podcast. Go and watch it if you're a big fan of NBA. I'll admit that up front. But in a week of wrestling, do you think sometimes, Matt, that we as fans allow ourselves to be a little bit negative? Do you think that way?
I could agree with that, yes.
Yeah. So I had an idea. Maybe I could bring something positive to the table. Just speak about one thing that was positive and, highlight some of the great things about wrestling. And then I realized that I'm a cynical bastard. And that just wouldn't work. So what I've done instead is I've brought around what I'm calling Tony's Sanctuary of Negativity. Okay?
Okay.
It's a new thing. Trying it out.
Right.
This has got nothing to do with wrestling, by the way. So don't even think about that. I'm going to speak about one of my pet hates in the world. I'm going to explain it to you, Matt, and you can see if you agree with what I'm saying, or if it's just something that is just a little bit with me.
Okay.
Thing. So this week, to start off, there's people out there, my wife included, that seem to think that it's okay to wear shoes without wearing socks. Now, you may be going, okay, what does that have to do with anything? It's the assumption that it's okay. And why do you have a problem with not wearing socks when wearing shoes? Because, Matt, I can't wear shoes without having socks on. I just can't do it.
I can't argue with you on this point.
Are you with me?
I'm very much, yeah.
No, I don't want to put my listen. I put my feet into my shoes. My feet start feeling fucking sweaty. You know how it gets. That sweat is getting into the shoe, making it fucking stinky as shit. And it's my fucking shoes.
It just feels wrong.
I don't even use it with my slippers. I can't put it into slippers without socks on. It feels wrong to me.
Odd.
But the assumption, it's like, I hope some other people understand where I'm coming from with this, but I just, with some people just like, it's just fucking, you're only going outside, you're only picking something up from the backyard. Just put your fucking shoes on and go outside. You don't have to find any socks on, because maybe it's a lazy Sunday or something. You're just kind of getting up, going about your day, you're having a lazy day. No, I need my fucking socks on. That's the way it has to be.
Or, to be even more lazy,
don't
put your shoes on.
Just go out barefoot.
Barefoot it.
No, I can't hack that myself.
That's kind of the key to my lazy Sundays, is I am barefoot most of the day.
Well, I can imagine you just in your boxes, just like, fuck, I'm not putting anything on.
No, just whack on some lounge pants or something. And
next week on Gorka's site, it's just a picture of you just doing like the crossword in the newspaper, just in your brief.
Just one hand holding the paper, the other hand on my crutch. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's
maybe
my
PayPal can back me for that one as well.
Yeah, I hope they do. At $10 million, I'll be quite happy with that. Yeah, that's my sanctuary of negativity. My one thing this week. It's not wrestling related at all, but I genuinely started out trying to do something positive, and realised that no. It was far more entertaining to talk about something that pisses me off. So.
Nah, shoes with socks. No.
Yeah. If you guys are guys out there that wear your shoes without socks, come on. You're gonna have to up your sock game. I have shots over here that you can get like a 5-pack of cheap ass socks for like £2. Just do it. It's true. Socks were made for a very
I'm not
good
a
reason.
cheap sock person.
It doesn't matter. I have to have something on my feet. So if I have to resort to cheap socks, then I'll use cheap socks. But anyway, talking about socks. Well, actually, no, not talking about socks. That was a very bad.
That's a terrible attempt at a cutaway.
It really was. I'm like, where am I going with that? So, guys, if you liked my sanctuary of negativity, let us know. It's just something I'll just, we just try out segments every so often. It's like the trivia. We put the trivia up there, see if people liked it. They loved it, so now we've done it every single week. Speaking of trivia, there we go. That's a much better one. It's time for Matt's super sexy, amazingly difficult, but intense, awesome challenge. All right, Matt. So the theme of this week's show for the intense, awesome challenge is the brand split. So I've got some brand split trivia for you. Okay. So cast your memory back to I say bygone era, but it was like over 10 years ago, so maybe so. Are you ready?
Really that long ago?
Yeah. Well, the first draft was 2002. That's 14 years ago.
Shit.
Jeez, yeah. Does that make you feel a bit old?
Yeah.
I can remember watching the draft, but So, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Number 1. Who was Ric Flair's first pick in the 2002 draft? It's the first ever draft they did. Who was Ric Flair's first pick?
I'm kind of playing safe with the one I go Triple H.
Triple H, is that your answer?
Yeah.
Your final answer? Now, there hasn't been a week yet that you've got all 5 correct. And
It won't be this week.
it won't be this week. You got it wrong. So, it's The Undertaker. He picked The Undertaker, which was the big shock because if you remember, him and The Undertaker weren't good friends.
Yeah.
Storyline. And I think Taker, like Vince had promised to Taker, look, I'll definitely draft you to SmackDown. And that obviously wasn't the case. Number 2. Which superstar won a match to be crowned the first ever SmackDown champion in 2005, only to have the newly drafted world champion Batista instantly make the championship defunct? So I'll talk about a little bit of background. So essentially, SmackDown didn't have a champion for a while because their champion got drafted to Raw. So Raw had 2 champions.
Yeah.
So they came up with the idea of this. It was called the SmackDown Championship. It was going to be the championship for SmackDown. Someone won it, but as Dave Batista got transferred over to SmackDown
As heavyweight champion.
they didn't have the need for it anymore. But who was the person? Who won? Who technically won the SmackDown Championship before it was made defunct? It's in 2005.
11 years ago. I genuinely don't remember. The Edge.
Edge. Edge is your answer?
No, but
It's incorrect. It was JBL.
yeah.
JBL won.
Fuck JBL.
He's always getting on your back, with this show. Okay, number 3. Who was the only major star in WWE that wasn't drafted at all in 2002 due to him being, as I quote, a free agent? So in that very first draft, which major star wasn't drafted?
Lesnar?
Is Lesnar your answer?
So no one I can think of who was going around as a free agent. No. Oh. I'll go with Lesnar, yeah.
You're going with Lesnar, yeah? It's incorrect again. Lesnar was drafted in that.
Who wasn't?
It was Austin. Austin wasn't drafted.
Was a free agent.
He was a free agent. He was assigned, I think, to Raw after that.
Yeah, he was.
I can't remember the reason why. I think it was something to do with him not being around or him being on the injured list at the time. I don't know. I can't remember, but I know that it was or something. I think they might have said, something in his contract stops him from being drafted. So eventually, it was like both brands trying to sell their brand to Austin, and he chose Raw because he hates Vince. So there's 3 down, Matt. You need to get these last 2. And I will warn you, number 5 is very fucking hard, and I don't expect you to get it. So this is the one here. When number 4, a lot of pressure here, because since these trivia started, you've never gone without at least a point. So there is something on the line here. When ECW joined the draft for the first time, what was their first draft pick?
Christian.
You're going with Christian as their first draft pick. Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
That's incorrect again.
Oh, fuck's sake.
I thought you would get this one because when they joined the draft, it wasn't so much them joining the draft. Essentially, them becoming a brand allowed them to have draft picks.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a trick question here. So eventually, they were able to draft a couple of guys from each brand. And if you remember, part of the reason for making the ECW brand is because Rob Van Dam had just won the WWE Championship, and he was the first draft pick. And he was crowned the ECW champion for that.
Yeah.
Number 5. Oh God, I don't even think how I wouldn't have got this one. So this is going to be a long shot.
Good stuff.
All right. Number 5 in the 2002 draft. How many total picks were made, including the picks via the lottery on WWE.com? So how many talents were drafted? Yeah, I told you this one's hard.
27.
You go with 27.
I'll go with 27.
So this is the main draft, including the lottery.
29.
You go with 29.
Oh, yeah. Whatever difference that makes.
All right. You're way out.
Because it was more like 53 or whatever.
That's far closer. That's very close. It's 57. They did 10 for obviously each brand,
Yeah.
which were done on the show. And then they had the rest of them, so that would be 20 overall. The remaining 37 were done on WWE.com after that show aired, so it's 57. So, Matt, you don't know your brand splits that well.
No.
But now you'll have to go back and watch the 2002 brand split, just the draft.
Just to catch up.
Just to catch up on it. I will say this is very hard for anyone that just like hasn't even like thought about fucking that 2002 draft, or there was some, the Batista one in 2005. That's the only one that I think I would have got quite easily, and the only reason being is because I was like marking out to that moment. I was like, Batista, fucking hell. I was a huge Batista fan, so there we are, Matt. So Matt didn't do so well this week on the brand split. Let's see how the rest of you guys did. For your reference, though, Matt, Stacey, I think, got 2 right last week out of 6.
Okay.
But she had multiple choice, and it was a lot easier.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I'm pretty sure that you would have...
See, all this special treatment just for the fact that you sleep...
You start sleeping with me and things will change. You know how it is. Of course I get preferential treatment. All right, Matt. I don't know how much time we have, but we'll have to try and get some stuff done on the Raw review.
Raw happened!
Raw happened. Now we're done. Now we'll talk a little bit about it. So I'm not going to... Usually what we do is we go through all the segments. I'm not going to do that this week. I'm just going to go through some of the more big things that happened and stuff like that. Satirize a few bits here and there, as you come to expect. So this is coming straight off of the heels of Extreme Rules, with Rollins returning, so that was the big deal of that. Emanated from Baltimore. You remember Baltimore as being from one of the places that me and Matt kind of bagged on in the early days of this podcast for. I think they had like Jake Roberts return at an old school Raw, and they didn't pop at all for him, and we were like pissed. We were like, fuck off, Baltimore. What the fuck is Jake Roberts returning? What are you doing? But I don't think they were too bad this week. They were all right.
Yeah,
and they haven't been bad.
There was quite a few good bits of this.
Yeah. So, Matt, one thing about this is that this might be one of the last couple of Raws that you will end up watching for a while.
I know.
Would you miss it?
No. I don't know. It depends how I get on SmackDown.
Yeah, it depends who you get in the draft, yeah. All right, so the show kicked off with returning hero Seth Rollins. Of course, he's been out for the last 7 months. He says 200 days have passed. He wants to win back the title that he never lost. Now, the crowd, Matt, have plenty of love for Seth Rollins. Although some of them could kind of see the writing on the wall. They could kind of see that that he was staying face from what he was saying. And, of course, it didn't last too long. He brings up the boos for breaking the Shield apart, for people calling him the weakest champion of all time and discrediting his title run. So WWE clearly they want Seth Rollins to be the evil rival to Roman Reigns, the heroic Roman Reigns, which you wouldn't have got that for with the boos he ends up getting. But.
Which is apparently a real thing.
Yeah. Matt, I think this is a case here because I honestly thought that they should have gone with Reigns being heel and Rollins being face. It seems to me that they're putting a square peg in a round hole and putting a round peg in a square hole. They're putting 2 different puzzle pieces in the wrong place and fucking banging on it until it works. Why don't you just go with what the fans want? They clearly want to cheer Rollins. You don't even have to have Rollins come across like, oh, thank you guys. I understood how much I loved you while I was away. You can even him be a bit of a dick, but just be like, you know what? This seems to be a guy that a lot of you really dislike, and you know what? I dislike him too, and I'm going to take his title away. And everyone would be well on board with him for that. They would be cheering his name. And he's not exactly like failing the character. It's just not blasting the crowd. He's just like, okay, I'll take the title away from Reigns. And you all hate Reigns. That instantly makes me uber face, and I'm back. I think they're missing something here. They're trying to force a dynamic that clearly the fans just don't resonate with. What do you feel about it?
I don't know. I liked the promo. I'll definitely go as far as to say that. But yeah, I completely agree. If you've got someone like they should have seen it, considering everyone was just sort of like, we've missed Rollins for so long, and now all of a sudden it's like, he's returning, fucking yeah. But it's like, but fuck you guys. Like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Just give us someone we cheer for, and give us a reason to cheer them, not shit on them.
Yeah, and it's not as if it's like, for instance, they were playing down his association with Stephanie McMahon on this show.
Later on, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, you don't even have to run off that. You could just be like him being this guy who clearly is an established star, right? He's a lengthy world champion. If they just decided to have a bit of balls and go, okay, we'll make Reigns the biggest heel in the company and we'll push that, right, as far as it will go. Imagine the fucking return for Rollins, like, coming back and taking out Reigns. We would have looked at him like he was our savior. Yeah? Here is this guy to fucking stop Roman Reigns because we all hate him, then Reigns is getting the response that he needs, Rollins is getting the response that he needs, and the world keeps turning and WWE makes a lot of money. But they're forcing these guys into roles that the fans don't want them in. So why are you fighting it? Like back in the day, you would never fight it. So why are you doing it now? I know why.
Sort of like, why are you fighting us?
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. But still, Reigns comes down. He gets a mixed reaction at best. JBL drops that fucking line again. He is not the bad guy, not the good guy. He's the guy. That is probably one of the worst lines in wrestling history at this point. How dead it's got so quickly. It's cringeworthy, Matt. I literally cringe when I hear it now. It wasn't good on the first week he used it. I'm still hearing it 2 months afterwards. Fucking hell. Rollins does the thing where he exits the ring just as Reigns comes in for a fight. Shane comes in, makes the match at Money in the Bank.
Yep.
So there we are. I just still think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. Sheamus got far too much time on this show. He got like 3 back-to-back like segments here, which was weird. And then he wrestled Sami Zayn. What do you think of this match, by the way?
Yeah,
I wasn't a big fan of this one. Which I think Sheamus has to be commended for the fact that he managed to have Sami Zayn have one of his more boring matches since he's come to the main roster. But still, Zayn hits the Helluva kick, goes forward. One thing I will say that I was quite happy with this show for is that the Money in the Bank ladder match, they had all the qualifying matches on, well, not all of them, but a good chunk of them.
Have been, today, on this episode.
Yeah, and it meant that a lot of the matches genuinely meant something.
Yeah.
Something was on the line. And that, that's one thing that I wish that they would do more often. So I'm glad that they did it here on the show. It makes the matches much more involving. Apollo Crews is talking to Renee Young backstage. She asks him, Jericho got a beating, so it must be a lot easier to beat him.
Yeah.
And Crews essentially goes, yeah, maybe, should be. And then he gets attacked by Sheamus. That's obviously going to be Crews' next feud because neither of these guys are going to the Money in the Bank match. The New Day come out. They have a birthday cake for Raw because it's their 1,200th episode. Over 23 years of age. So, however, they know that there's no safe place for the cake, so they tease accidentally throwing it into the audience. Some of them may have been hungry. They could.
Yeah. Especially they're like, that little kid. It's like, yes, throw it at the little kid.
I love that Big E. Big E looked like a demonic cake thrower who finds the act of throwing cake at people erotically pleasing.
The cake monster.
Yeah.
Have you seen the the picture going around? It's like when you sneak to the fridge at 2 a.m. and it's just cake. It's like,
just wide-eyed and looking like, yeah. The Social Outcasts attack the champions, but then in a match afterwards, the New Day basically just fucking destroy them. So, although there was a funny moment here where they tried to do a victory lap with Heath Slater, who just got basically destroyed.
And he just completely flat-faced it. Yeah,
he just did a Ric Flair. Ric Flair did that spot where he just land straight on his mug. Yeah, he basically did that. I thought that was quite funny, I will say. That's comedy I could get behind right there, but still. Slayer gets a full face of cake, which was funny at the beginning because when he got hit by the cake, it looked like nothing actually landed on him. Don't know if you call that. Yeah. But then Big E fixed that by just going in his face with
probably
the cake.
Getting it all in there.
That's it. Which, can't exactly be worse than what happened to him on Swerved. So I'm sure he's used to it.
Oh, yeah.
Miz versus Cesaro, Matt's favourite couple here on the show, Miz and Maurice.
Ooh.
They gloat a little bit for retaining their championship. My pet hate, man, I should have brought this up in my sanctuary of negativity. My pet hate in wrestling is the thought track that in a fatal four-way match, every competitor has a 25% chance of winning.
That's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, so in a fatal four-way match between Brock Lesnar and the Social Outcast, Brock Lesnar has a 25% chance of winning that match, does he? More like 225% chance of winning that match, let's be honest. Yeah. And you could do all the fucking Scott Steiner maths to that, it still makes sense. I don't know why, man. It fucking annoys me when they keep doing, he's got 25% chance of retaining his title. I'm like, that's not how match odds work. You know?
Yeah, I mean, especially considering I find it really bizarre because they're just sort of like, it's not matter. It's 25% chance. Well, yeah, there's four of you. One of you's going to win. That's 25% chance. But the odds are worse than that, surely.
Yeah, for someone like The Miz, who isn't as good as the other guys and he always wins by cheating, I'm sure they would play up that he's got even less of a chance of winning. But,
yeah.
Or it's just like, if you want it to be taken seriously as like a legit match, then that's not how it works. Like, if you've got like a fucking, an MMA fight between Conor McGregor and CM Punk, sorry, is that 50-50 who's going to win that match? No, more like 100-0. Odds don't work that way. I don't know why. I know it's just wrestling and the way they do it. That's my pet hate. I fucking hate when they do that, but still. They could try and get a little bit more in-depth with it, but I'm sure we would end up, as I said, with more Scott Steiner fucking math. So there we are. Another match here, I think that displays some of the incredible physical feats that Cesaro was capable of. That deadlift suplex was fucking... Yeah.
Great.
I don't even want to know what level of strength you need to pull that sort of shit off, but I will never be that strong in my lifetime. I can say that right now, so big respect. I also hear him drop kicking The Miz when he's on the turnbuckle and still hitting roughly his head, which I thought, wow, that's impressive right there. Another thing with him as well is that springboard uppercut. Oh,
delicious.
Delicious. Love it. Thought it was a decent match, though. Miz was doing the heel thing, focusing on Cesaro's shoulder, right? A long match as well. Cesaro dominated in some nice, helpful portions. He hits the neutralizer and then makes it into the Money in the Bank ladder match. I thought it was decent.
Yeah, I quite like the shoulder targeting from The Miz.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. And
I can't turn around and go, it's a crappy match. It was a good match.
Yeah, it was good. I liked it. Renee speaks to Rollins backstage. This is just building up that Stephanie McMahon and Rollins don't have a business relationship anymore. But somehow, despite all this,
handshake, no hugs.
Yeah. It just feels to me, though, Matt, that it feels to me that eventually, I don't know, maybe it's just me being paranoid. It feels to me that they're eventually building up the return of the Authority. That's Stephanie McMahon is playing this role, and eventually it'll be like, it was me building up this relationship with Rollins again and taking.
She's going to basically pull a dad on them.
Yeah,
it was me, Shane.
I'm just like, I don't want these. I like them to go forward and just if something isn't working, just don't go back to what you did before because that wasn't working very well either. So, still. Jericho versus Cruz. Here we go because I know you've got a bit to talk about this. Yeah. And I think this is really stupid what they did here. So Jericho, he's coming out one day after taking, quite a bit of punishment in that Asylum match. No matter what you thought about the quality of that match was, he still took a beating, right? Yeah. He took fucking tacks all over his body and he was bleeding all over the place, right? He's covered in plasters and bandages. Like, he looked like he's beaten up and he doesn't look so pleased to be wrestling straight after, being in the Asylum match. So what happens here? I expected, because Cruz just didn't sell the fact that he got attacked by Sheamus beforehand. He seemed 100%. So I'm not even adding that into, because if this is what they were trying to tell in the story, then Cruz just didn't sell that enough, that he was injured from Sheamus attacking him.
Yeah.
They had a long match, longer than I expected, considering Jericho's obvious pain, right? And while it must have been a thrill for Cruz to wrestle Jericho, when Jericho actually beats him, I'm like, okay, that looks really bad on his character.
Yeah.
which is what you were alluding to a little bit earlier on, that he couldn't beat a very beaten up Chris Jericho. I know Jericho.
I think the other thing that looks bad is that kip up lion salt thing.
That was awful.
Horribly wrong.
Yeah, and I'm sure. What unfortunately to me, I think that's part of, not obviously, I think that's gonna stay in people's memory for a little while, which is a bit of a shame because that was an ugly botch, wasn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they did this. Like, if you want Jericho in that match, make him beat someone else. Surely.
Yeah.
Just odd to me. I don't understand it. What do you think about? Like, do you think that maybe they're trying to build up something with, like, maybe they're going to try and make Cruz a bit more edgier so he loses a couple of matches, get some attitude? Maybe I
fucking hope.
I don't know.
Or he's now going to start feuding with Sheamus as an actual feud.
I think that's where they're going. But I mean, it looks horrible on the guy that he lost to Jericho in that state. I don't understand the thought track of it there. I really don't. I'd love to speak to someone in WWE and honestly ask them, like, what were you thinking here? Was there some sort of long-term plan? If there wasn't, this is one of the most dumbest things I've ever seen. But I don't know, man. I honestly, I look at this and I'm like, how do you expect Cruz to get over with this sort of... He's not around that long, right? I don't mind him losing. That's not a problem to me. It's the manner of how he lost. I don't know. I'm worried about Cruz a little bit.
I am. Like I said, he's not been like predominant on pay-per-views or anything like that.
No. A little bit like Corbin in that sense. But I thought with Cruz, they looked at the guy, and I heard all the backstage news that apparently Vince is very high on the guy. He likes Cruz and sees money in him, which he should. But then when he loses this match here, I'm like, that's a bit strange. I'll keep my eye on this with Cruz because they've alerted me to it. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and maybe they're going to tell a story with him. If it's just a generic rivalry with Sheamus that they have planned, then there's still no reason for him to have lost this match. And maybe their idea was, as we said there, that the attack by Sheamus maybe rattled Cruz's head. Maybe he was fighting with somewhat like remnants of a concussion, maybe. That's why he lost. But that story was never really told. They never really went there. Cruz looked like he was 100%. Still. Renee Young speaks to Sheamus. He just walks off and laughs. I'm glad because I couldn't have handled any more exposure on the guy. People know my thoughts on him. Another life lesson with Bob Backlund. Oh, yes. He's frustrated that Darren Young is taking notes. That is the entirety of this video. And it's done in the same way where they're videoed like side by side.
Yeah.
There was potential with this, but it's already fucked. There you go. That's my thoughts on it. And I really feel bad for Darren Young because I think he's capable of a lot more. But there you go. JoJo was speaking to Corbin backstage. I'm like, where did Renee go?
To bring us back, Renee.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not even. I don't mind JoJo, but it's a little bit like she was interviewing someone like she was interviewing Sheamus just before that video about Backlund. Yeah.
There's like JoJo looks really short next to Corbin.
She's tiny though. Let's be honest, she's absolutely tiny. He's like, oh, I beat up Ziggler, blah 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 blah. Ziggler shows up and is like, oh, you'll never beat me in a technical wrestling match. Corbin's like,
I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
Considering
I'm like,
I pinned you in a standard match format.
Yeah. I'm like,
technical wrestling match.
Maybe Ziggler should go and start wrestling in the amateurs, like go to the Olympics, try and do that if he's really that interested in technical wrestling. It just seems very odd for him to have a reason. You never beat me in a technical wrestling match, and Corbin comes across like, well, does that fucking matter? I'm like, I'm with Corbin here. Yeah, if he can punch you and knock you out in one hit, why go and do a rest hold? It makes no sense. But still, Corbin says, "Oh, I'll hand you a beating next week." It feels like Corbin's wrestled no one but Dolph Ziggler since WrestleMania.
I think that might actually be true.
That's really bad. That's like 2 months of him wrestling no one but fucking Ziggler. Which is awful because it's not going anywhere and it's stale. So
I genuinely think that's true.
Maybe he's wrestled one other person as like a enhancement. Maybe I think he beat like maybe Breeze, maybe. But
possibly.
I don't know. possibly. Big Cass comes out. Behind him is the returning and extremely happy Enzo Amore. He goes on then to explain in his own beautifully elegant way that he was concussed with a concussion. And a bunch of other stuff that I really enjoyed, but I have to be honest, man, I'm not even sure that I understood it. So it's like Nakamura on NXT this week. I enjoyed him speaking. Even he agreed that he didn't know what he was saying. So, yeah. Although with Nakamura, it came off quite funny.
I loved it.
Did you see that clip with Nakamura, by the way? He's like talking in broken English, and he asks Aries, "Oh, do you understand what I'm saying?" And he's like, "No." And Nakamura's like, "Yeah, me neither." It's like,
yeah, I don't even know what I'm saying either. Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah. This leads to the match with Cass against Bubba Ray Dudley. Enzo and Devon fighting on the outside occasionally. Cass wins here with an elbow drop. Let's just call it what it is. It's an elbow drop, which is apparently called the Empire elbow drop. I've never heard him use that.
Yeah, I've heard it.
But I'm like...
It's not usually his finish.
Yeah, I'm like, it's an elbow drop. Is that a finisher nowadays? Like, that's an like, Matt, there was nothing special about that. It was just an elbow drop.
No, he's just a 6 foot person jumping on you. That's kind of about it.
He did moves there that seemed a lot more devastating than an elbow drop. So
his big boot, for example.
Yeah, like that seemed like it really like knocked Bubba's block off. I'm like, that could have ended the match. No, elbow drop. So,
yeah, but let's. I mean, you obviously consider we've got like Hogan.
Yeah, we've got for the days of the Hogan, though, isn't it? Like the atomic leg drop. Like, you know, people don't use body slams as finishers anymore because things have just changed. It just seemed really odd to me. Here's a big segment now over the course of this week. Charlotte, Rick, and Dana are out. I thought this was interesting because Rick tells her how proud he is. Storyline aside, I've said this before, that he is hugely proud of her. And I'm sure that he never, ever thought in his wildest dreams that it would be his daughter that carried on his wrestling legacy.
Yeah.
But that's just the way that the cookie crumbles. And I think she's doing great. Then he goes on to say that, well, look at you. You got Dana Brooke now. She's like your Arn Anderson. People weren't happy with that at all. They were like, really?
And the fact that they showed Arn Anderson afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love to just sort of like, full well the backstage, like, did you really just compare me to her?
I'm sure down the line, Dana Brooke could be like like the women's Arn Anderson if she chooses to be. She's not anywhere close to that. She's like 5 years at best away from being at a level like Arn was at, and that's if she starts pulling world-class matches out of her arsehole. But yeah, that a lot of fans were quite upset. They were like, "What?" But still, they're building up heel heat for Dana. I'm sure that helped. However, the mood changes when Charlotte turns her attention to Rick and says, "Well, I'm pissed off that you were never there for my holidays and when I was a kid and all that shit. While I'm a champion and I understand why you did it, now I have the courage to tell you to fuck off." So I'm like, okay. Although she does go in quite hard and Rick starts crying, I'm like, it's not that hard to make Rick cry, let's be honest.
This promo, to be fair, though, was brutal.
Yeah, I thought it was great by Charlotte. I thought she did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, with this. I thought she was really good. I'm quite surprised, actually, that Rick didn't start bleeding at the insults. We know how easy it is to bust him open. Yeah?
That's very true.
Just like, you're dead to me. It's suddenly a big gash on his head. He just falls to the floor, just bleeding out, That's what it's come to.
The massive gash just creeps across his throat.
Yeah. The funny thing with this, though, I mean, like I said, I thought Charlotte was brilliant here. I really do. And I think that she's one of the better speakers in the women's division.
Especially of late. She's definitely improved, like, drastically.
Yeah. Yeah, she's got a bit of confidence, a bit of swagger, right?
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Fantastic. She's the heel champion the division needs. She's the right champion for Sasha Banks to be. But, that's down the line. So she tells him to get out of the ring. I will say, however, like while the promo was good, it did come off as a bit bipolar. I mean, it was only like a week ago she was saying, "Oh, my father is the greatest all the time, and I love him around." I would love if they maybe had just teased it, just a little bit, that there was some dissension there. but there wasn't, so it came off as a little bit random. But that's not down to her, that's down to the writers. He leaves and the segment ends. But I thought it was pretty good. If you're going to do a split and get more heel heat on Charlotte, then I think that was job done right there. They later on did show Rick leaving the arena, and everyone's like, "Oh, and I'm like,
Rick."
Yeah,
I'm like, if you want to say something, Rick, and they're like, no.
I think it's funny how everyone's like, even people like, like some of the talent backstage are just like, looking very solemn, like, "Oh, I'm very sorry, Rick," and all this stuff. I'm like, fucking like 2 weeks ago, he was telling Becky Lynch to go kill herself. Like, it wasn't that long ago that he was like wooing and L dropping shit. And I'm like, 1 week where her daughter goes a bit hard on him, and everyone's just like, "Oh, we forgive you for all the things you said before." I'm like, okay, it's wrestling though. I understand. We see the Shining Stars talking over what I said earlier on as a very badly edited green screen. I can edit green screen images better than that, and I don't work for WWE. I urge anyone to go back and watch this and look at the outlines of the guys when they're talking. I'm like, WWE normally has very great production values. That's some of the worst green screening. I've seen YouTubers, Matt, that do green screen on a regular basis that never get it as wrong as what they did. So maybe that's the technical point of me being a little bit pissy, but still. I expect good green screens on my show, damn it. That's what I expect. What do you think of the Shining Stars anyway? You missed their debut last week.
Yeah.
Did you? Oh, you didn't listen to the podcast. Do you know what Stacey genuinely thought they were?
What?
So when it came up, Stacey thought they were a really cool, progressive advertisement for a gay couple. A gay marriage being legalized somewhere in Puerto Rico. She genuinely thought that's what it was until she realized, oh, they're a wrestler. They're a tag team. So, yeah. They're now referred to as the homosexual travel guides from Puerto Rico.
To be fair, that's kind of true.
Yeah. But still, there we are. Styles comes out. He puts over Roman Reigns hard here. Which, regardless of whether or not it's genuinely what he feels or not, that is part of the problem. And I'm very surprised. Go on.
The only trouble is the moment he said, like, and he did well, and suddenly I was like, the fuck?
Yeah, this is part of the problem. If you're going to have guys that come out and endorse Roman Reigns, then obviously they clearly don't understand the problem that fans have of Roman Reigns. It's the fact that people are endorsing him far too much. People are far too behind him. And the fans are looking at it like, this guy's getting shoved down our throats. We don't want to hear the guy that we like endorsing someone that we don't like. And Styles even come out on like online over the course of the week and says, actually, I'm really a big fan of Reigns. He's a great worker, and I think he's a great wrestler. I think he gets a hard time. And if that is genuinely how he feels, then I would wish and I would hope that he would understand that coming out and saying that shit is only hurting him. It's only hurting Reigns. Because it fuels people. They're like, oh, another person backing him. We just don't fucking like him, But still, there we are. He says that he would have won the championship if Gallows and Anderson and the Usos hadn't got involved. And, of course, Gallows and Anderson are like, what the fuck did you just say? They come out and say, you know what? If it wasn't for us, you would have lost a lot of bar fights down in Roppongi. We have to go to Roppongi at one point, Matt.
I think so, yeah.
Go partying, in Roppongi. According to all the New Japan guys, it's the place to be. So, the late nights in Roppongi. Or you hear actually the stories of Gallows and Anderson spending like full on nights at like 5 o'clock in the morning with the sponsors and stuff.
Oh, you listen to their podcast as well then?
Yeah, that's one of the better podcasts I think Jericho's done. I love the podcast. The story of Gallows, I've said it before, the story of Gallows in Nigeria.
Oh, that's
great. That is so good. I love that story. So, yeah, I mean, Styles is like, listen, I want our friendship to stay strong, but the professional relationship between us, it has to stop. Of course, Gallows and Anderson are like, well, fuck you.
Yeah. We helped you.
Yeah. So here's where I think they're going with this, right? Or at least I thought this were going with this when it came to the main event, and that Gallows and Anderson didn't come out. But I imagine Gallows and Anderson...
I was expecting a screw.
Yeah. Gallows and Anderson, I expect at some point they're going to take their frustrations out on Styles and be like, we helped you. We gave you the first 2 months of us being in this company to help you, and you throw it back in our face? How dare you, right? And they start going for Styles. And maybe initially Styles says, you know what, I could deal with the two of you on my own. But then he realizes that he can't, right? And he gets beaten. So he's like, I need someone that can help. I need someone that knows the situation very well. I need someone who maybe has a history with dealing with these guys and a history of being around the club.
Mm.
That only guy could be Finn Balor.
Yeah, a certain individual who needs a call-up.
Yeah, so an Irish demon with a history with the club of sorts. The way that I see it going down, this is how I would do it, is that you have Balor and Styles. They team up to go against the evil club who seems to just want to destroy Styles now. And then in that tag team match, when it all looks like Styles and Balor clearly had the upper hand, Balor's like, this is what I wanted all along. I wanted you to call me out. These boys are mine. You know, the club was always mine to begin with anyway.
Yeah.
You just came along after I left. And then he takes out Styles, and then bam, you got Balor and Styles as a feud going on. I think that's what everyone wants to.
With the club.
With the club involved as well. I think that people would really like to see that. And it gets Balor on straight into a high-profile match and straight into a rivalry and a storyline straight away. I can't think of a better way to get him involved, personally, but there we are. And it's with guys he knows he could do well. Well, maybe not Styles, but of course he'd be able to wrestle well with Styles. You know, you don't get two guys as talented as that not knowing how to really work with each other. But there. So that leads to the match, the final match of the night, Owens versus Styles, with another weird ending to this. Although the match was very, very good, as you would expect with Owens and Styles. It went long, but you'd expect it. It's the main event. I think it hurt the match a little bit that it was just at the end of the show that people are just burnt out at that point. I don't think it's down to them wrestling poorly. I think they did very well. I just think it's at the end of 3 hours. You can put on the best fucking wrestling match all you like. People are still going to be burnt out at that point. Let's just be honest. Now, one of the issues, I think, with Styles overall, and I know that's piqued a few of our fans' ears up and going, you're going to talk a bit of smack about Styles? How fucking dare you do that? Listen, my problem with Styles is, and I wonder whether you think this, Matt, I think he's a little bit too good. And let me explain that. When he does moves like a springboard 450 splash, he gets a 2 count. It makes it seem as if he can never actually get a victory. That he's hitting people with all these amazing moves and it never beats his opponent. And yet they might hit him with like a powerbomb and then it's done. So Styles, in effect, it's almost like a little bit with the psychology of it. He's kind of a little bit too good. He's got too many good moves in his arsenal. That's coming to a point now. It comes across a little bit like Styles can never beat anyone at this point because he keeps hitting all these fucking moves and not picking up the win. You know? How many times did he hit a lot of very big, high-profile moves on Roman Reigns in the 2 matches he had? He had fucking tons of them. One spear, you're done. You know?
Done.
A little bit. He was a little bit in this match. You know, that springboard 450 splash, that should be ending a match, right? Fucking Rey Mysterio used to finish matches by a springboard splash. You know, like just a springboard splash. And he didn't even jump. Sometimes he just fucking fell from the top rope, right? AJ Styles do 450 splashes off the top
ridiculous.
rope. Yeah, that's my issue there a little bit, but still. Owens hits the powerbomb on the steel steps. Why he didn't get a DQ for that, don't know why, but still. And then he goes on to win the match completely clean with another pop-up powerbomb. So yeah, Styles is beaten again. Now, clearly, Owens, people might be going, oh, so you don't want him losing to Owens. I don't think it's okay losing to Owens, but I think Styles should just come out of a top-tier championship rivalry with Roman Reigns, where he's been on the main event 2 pay-per-views in a row. He comes off of that, losing twice and not looking as if he can really win the big one. His first match back in, he goes against what is a mid-tier guy in Kevin Owens, yeah. As much as we dislike it, that's what he is at the moment, yeah. And he loses to him clean. Yeah. So That's a bit worrying when I thought they could have easily just had the club down and cost him. You know? And if that is the storyline that they want to go down in the future where the club just eventually decide to go for him, then why not do it this way? I mean, it's not as if Owens needs the clean win over Styles. As a heel, it would probably benefit him to win it by cheating in that sense. So...
Well, whichever direction they're going with.
Yeah. So it doesn't exactly help him. Losing matches like those don't exactly help his profile on a main event level. You know? He's been losing a lot of matches recently, let's be honest, Styles, yeah? And while he's been involved in that main event feud, that was a good spot for him, worries me a little bit. I'm not going to go and go, oh, they're completely ruining him, because I don't believe that. I think it needs more time for that to happen. But Matt, I mean, come on. I can't be the only person that watched the end of this match and was a little bit like,
The fuck.
Yeah, that doesn't sit entirely well with me a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but still, there we are. I mean, like I said, Owens, I mean, apart from that powerbomb on the steel steps, which the referee didn't call as anything illegal, so technically he didn't cheat, right? Owens didn't do anything else to really cheat. He didn't use a foreign object behind the referee's back, didn't thumb the eye, didn't do anything like that. He just beat him clean. You know? Didn't do anything like that. So, very odd. All in all, though, Matt, a good show, I thought.
Yeah, I'd say it was a good rule.
Yeah, some good matches here. All of them meant something. A couple of large storylines steps with the Charlotte segment, which I thought was pretty good. And still feel as if they are missing the chance for a good main event dynamic with the Reigns and Rollins, but they've put their pieces where they want them to be, and now they're going to try and make it work. Still think they're missing out, but still. But yeah, all in all, I think it's well worth a watch. It's kind of on the higher end of worth a watch.
Oh yeah,
watch actually. So a good week. Is that what's going on your rating anyway?
Yeah, it was a solid week. I think it's probably helped with the sheer fact that it was one of those sort of like there's a reason for this. There's a reason for everything. Yeah.
I think the only thing that maybe stops it from being like watch over and over again, which is our top rating, is there wasn't like a match that like we would go back and go, right, that's a contender for match of the year, which you need to have for like a show that's like watch over and over and over again. So that's the only thing there. But yeah, all in all, I think it's pretty good. All right then, Matt, we're talking loads. I'm sure we've gone over time, but it was bound to happen this week. Is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap this shit up and head on our way?
I have nothing else to add.
All right, let's do our plugs and get the hell out of here.
I'm just going to go and watch the Ricochet Ospreay match again.
Yeah, that's Matt's match of the week without question. I imagine. You know, your thoughts with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys would like to interact with us, the main way of doing so is our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Let's Talk Wrestling Podcast. If you want to tweet us, there is a Twitter handle which will allow your tweets to enter the stratosphere.
The Twitter handle of @TalkWrestlePod.
Yeah, that's the one. And of course, you can send us any audio questions or private emails to the Let's Talk Wrestling Podcast @gmail.com. Plenty of ways to get in contact with us. You can also leave any questions in the comment section below. Of course, if you'd like to subscribe, if you're a new listener to the show, that'd be fantastic. You can help us try and reach over 650 subscribers, which we're close to. That'd be really good. And apart from that, we would really enjoy your feedback. Listen, if you don't even want to leave it in the comments because it might be too long, we would really appreciate your feedback on how you'd like us to kind of handle the show going forward with the brand split, because we'd like to factor all that in when we know. Yeah, we've got no fucking clue, honestly. So if you want to send us like an email, if you want to leave a comment, any way you want to do it, we would really appreciate our feedback this week, and that way we can kind of figure out the lay of the land and how best you guys would like to experience our content over a weekly basis, whether or not you want it modularized in separate videos, or if you want it all done in one, or if you want it done like semi-modularized where the reviews are done in its own separate video and then the rest of it on the other. Just let us know your thoughts, or if you've got a completely different idea, how I'm fucking open to anything at this point. And then regardless of the fact there will be big changes come to the podcast, because big changes are happening in wrestling and we have to change and adapt with them. So that's how we're going. All right then, guys, have a great week. We'll catch you all next time for the Lucha Underground review. There's not many of them left now. Jeez. be quite sad when that ends, but still. And of course, the weekly episodic podcast. This was episode 127, Matt. 127.
Only 113. Well, 1,113 to go, and we'll be on Raw.
Yeah, if they stop airing today, which we wouldn't have anything to fucking do, you know. But...
Fair shout.
We'll get there eventually, Matt. It's the optimism I like there. It's the optimism. All right, guys, have a great week, and we'll catch you all next time.
We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.